Hello and welcome guys. Make yourselves comfortable and enjoy. This is Affinity, Chaos, Chapter 591. Swoosh, bam. The mare attacked, pushing Grey back again. Buzz, bang. A lightning bolt struck the area Grey was in, covering almost 100 meters radius. Grey was in the middle of the lightning bolt, scurrying about to protect himself from the lightning strikes. Now, he could see the difference between someone in the 7th stage of the Overlord plane, and one who was already very close to the peak of the Overlord plane. With a flicker, he escaped from the rain of lightning, going out of the attack range. The mayor was already expecting this, so as soon as he saw him leaving the attack range, he attacked again, sending out a lightning arrow. Boom! Grey threw a fireball at the arrow when he saw it, and it exploded on impact, pushing him back by a few meters. Before he could regain himself, the mare charged at him, sending out attack after attack. Boom, whoosh, bam, bang. Grey blocked, evaded, and was hit by some attacks, although they didn't have the original strength behind it. On Alice and Reynolds' side, they were getting pushed back more. After the elemental warrior self-destructed, the group they were fighting against finally noticed that Reynolds couldn't summon the elemental warrior for a second time. The earth elementalist who was almost killed in the explosion was the one who was attacking more viciously. "You bastard. I'll kill you all," the earth elementalist screamed as he continued attacking excessively. Boom, bang. Reynolds was sent flying, with Alice protecting herself to ensure she wasn't hurt by the attacks. Grey's inscriptions continued attacking as well, but the group was blocking the attacks, making sure Alice and Reynolds were isolated. Bang. Alice was sent flying as well, crashing into the ground. "Oh, hello." Reynolds waved when Alice slammed close to him. "Not funny, Ray." Alice stood up, taking into the air once again. "Oh shit. Let's go," Reynolds exclaimed. Lightning enveloped his body as he left the ground, shooting into the air with unimaginable speed. He headed straight for an instructor in the 3rd stage of the Overlord plane. Buzz, bang, take that. Ha ha. Reynolds laughed, with blood slightly running down the side of his mouth and his hair in disarray. He looked like a psychopath. Lightning punch. He yelled in front of another instructor after sending the first one flying. On hearing what Reynolds said, the instructor prepared himself for a punch coming his way. He was left helpless when Reynolds sent a lightning bolt to hit him on his back. "Ah!" The instructor screamed in pain before falling to the ground. The instructor flying beside the one Reynolds just sent to the ground, stared at him angrily. "How can you be so shameless? Why was he foolish enough to listen to what I said?" Grey mocked. Bam. The instructor attacked, accompanied by a few who were around. Reynolds turned tails and ran away. There was no way he was going to fight against so many people on his own, especially without the help of his elemental warrior. Boom, bang, bam. Reynolds and Alice were running from the attacks of the instructors. On Grey's side of the battle, he was sent flying, slamming into the ground. Old Man Gerald was watching the battle from the side, getting a little worried for Grey and his friends. Prince Casper, on the other hand, was finally starting to get a sense of safety and relief. Once Grey and his friends were defeated, he wouldn't need to worry about anything any longer. "Father, are you going to watch Alice Hay taken away?" Sasha turned to her father. Donald clenched his fists, stuck in a dilemma. If he attacked now, then the chances of Grey and his friends winning would improve. But what if the disappearance of the peak stage Overlord plane elementalist was a trick by them to see their reactions? "Father." Sasha grabbed onto her father, looking at him with pleading eyes. Just as Donald was about to make a decision, another change happened on the battlefield. Boom. Powerful energy exploded out in the middle of the battlefield, and looking in the direction, it was on the side of Grey's battle. Grey's strength was soon starting to surge, increasing so fast that within a few seconds, he was already over the 5th stage of the Overlord plane, quickly getting to the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th stage. A few seconds later, his aura was at the peak of the Overlord plane, and surging even. The eyes of the man nearly popped out. Old Man Gerald stood up, staring at Grey in shock. "How's that happening?" he asked, stuttering. Dillick opened his mouth, but no words came out of it. He couldn't explain something he didn't know. They knew it was a powerful technique that improved his strength, but they have never seen anything like this one. At most, the ones they seen or heard of would increase their stages by 1 or 2, but Gray went straight from the 5th stage to the peak of the Overlord plane. This impossible. The mayor retreated back on sensing how powerful Gray currently was. What was worse was that he could still sense that he was going slightly higher. However, a few seconds later, it stopped. Gray's energy stopped at the peak of the Overlord plane. "Get out of here, Prince Caspar," the mayor warned immediately. He knew at this rate, he was no match for the current Gray. Prince Caspar wanted to move, but he was unable to take a step back. The reason for this was that Gray appeared behind him, staring at him. "Stay here and watch. This will be over soon." Gray patted Prince Caspar on the shoulder, and all the strength in his body left him. He couldn't take a single step, nor could he generate any elemental essence in his body. With a simple pat, he couldn't move anymore. The mayor was shocked when he saw Gray appearing behind Prince Caspar. Without thinking, he charged towards him. "Get away from the prince," he ordered. Gray smiled. "I've always wanted to see how powerful I'll be in the fusion state, after getting to the Overlord plane. It's been so long." Chapter 592. Bam! Gray swung his hand, and a giant hand made of earth appeared in the sky, and smacked the mayor into the ground, as if he was a fly. Bang! The mayor crashed into the ground, causing a crater that was almost 10 meters deep. The mayor's body didn't stop after crashing into the ground. It created a hole in the shape of his body, and went drilled deeper due to the force from the smack. Buzz! The mayor burst out with lightning surrounding his body as he charged towards Gray. With a few hand seals, a lightning bird appeared and flew towards Gray. The power of the bird was on another level compared to his previous attacks. All this while, he had been fighting with the intent of capturing Gray and his friends. But now, he was fighting to kill. He couldn't afford to allow Gray to live. Futile efforts. Gray smiled before raising his right hand. At the tip of his index finger, a small black and blue orb that was around the size of a finger appeared. He stretched his hand above his head, and the size of the orb suddenly swelled. It went from the size of a finger to the size of a human head. It flew off Gray's hand, charging towards the lightning bird. Boom! The two attacks collided, and a powerful wave spread out in all directions, accompanied by a terrifying blast. Reynolds, Alice, Old Man Gerald, Donald, Dillick, Sasha, and everyone else on the battlefield were affected by the attack. Some of the weaker ones were even sent flying. "Gray, do you plan on killing us as well? Take this higher." Reynolds's voice could be heard from inside the explosion. The bright light from the explosion didn't die down immediately, and it could be seen from every single inch of Frost City. The other big families who were contemplating if they should join the mayor to fight against Gray slowly started to retreat. This was a battle they couldn't win. Gray was showing strength they had never seen before, and it scared them. A few seconds later, the light died down, and the result of the explosion appeared before Gray. Within a 1-kilometer radius, there was not a single building that was standing. They were all in ruins. Sigh, this is why I don't like fighting in cities. There just might be collateral damage. Gray furrowed his brows when he looked at the result of his attack. The mayor was standing mid-air, staring at Gray. "Don't worry, I've moved everyone away from this area." A voice suddenly came from the side. It was none other than Jonas. When he saw how intense the battle was getting, he quickly told the others to help him tell everyone around a 3 kilometers radius to evacuate the area. Before they even got there, some smart people had already started leaving the city in general. "Oh, now I won't feel too bad," Gray replied with a nod. He was feeling a little sad because of the thought of some innocent bystander getting caught in his attack, but since there was no one, he felt a sense of relief. "Why don't we take this higher?" He turned to the mayor. The mayor looked at the impact caused by the collision between their attacks, before nodding his head. He had been the mayor of Frost City for so long, and he had already grown a little attached to it. It would be a shame that his battle would be the cause of its destruction. "Okay, but before I go," Gray suddenly flickered twice. It was as if his body was going between ethereal and physical form. A moment it was as if he was disappearing, then the next it would seem as if he was in his physical state. But the mayor knew Gray was no longer there. An afterimage, the mayor thought to himself. How fast is he that he could create such an afterimage? This was the thought in the head of the mayor. He wasn't the only one who was stunned by this. Old Man Gerald, Dillick, Donald, and everyone else watching was asking the same question as well. A few seconds later, "All right, let's go," Gray said. His body hadn't dissolved completely when he appeared again. The mayor's heart suddenly sank when a thought crossed through his head. With a quick glance, he was able to confirm his thought. All the early-stage Overlord plane elementalists that were fighting against Alice and Reynolds were almost completely wiped out. The mid-stage Overlord plane instructors were all wiped out. There were around 5 surviving early-stage instructors left, and the only reason Gray left them alive was so that Reynolds and Alice could fight. You were enemies. There's no need in being sympathetic towards them. An enemy is an enemy. There's no way to change it at this point. Although I know they're only following the Emperor's orders, it still doesn't change the fact that they've become my enemy. The day they decided to capture me and my friends because of the Emperor's greedy desires was the day they cemented their deaths. Gray cut short the mayor and said. The mayor looked at him for a while before flying higher into the sky. Just as Gray was about to follow behind him, he heard Reynolds' voice. What? Who killed them? It must be Gray. Damn it. And I could have taken them on by myself, Reynolds exclaimed when he saw that there were only 5 surviving instructors. Alice rolled her eyes when she heard this. You know what? Why don't you take on these guys on your own since you're so powerful? And have all the fun on my own? Of course not. I want you to train as well, Reynolds replied instantly. Ray, Alice called. Yeah, Reynolds asked. They're getting away. Alice pointed at the instructors flying away. Shit. Get them. Reynolds went after the instructors. Alice chuckled before following behind him, but they weren't under any pressure, since they know that all the threats around them have been neutralized. If they let these instructors go, it still wouldn't change how things would end. Chapter 593. Doing this will only make things worse between you and the Emperor, the mayor said after Gray caught up to him high up in the sky. He's already trying to kill me. Things can't get worse. This is literally the peak right now. Gray shrugged. You might be using a secret technique to improve your strength, but all I need to do is hang on until the time elapses, and you're finished, the mayor said. Do you really think you can last that long? Gray asked curiously. I believe in my abilities, the mayor replied. Cool. Gray didn't say anything else. Naturally, he didn't have all the time in the world, so he had to act quick. Swoosh, buzz, bang. A lightning bow appeared. On it was notched a silver lightning bow that shot out instantly. The speed of the arrow was mind-blowing. This attack was as fast as the attack the young man who attacked him at that ruin used. Even after breaking through to the Overlord plane, Gray wasn't too confident in his ability to dodge that attack. But with the aid of the fusion state, he didn't have any problems with dodging it. He soon disappeared from where the attack wanted to hit. Due to his speed, he left an afterimage there which the arrow went through before it started to quickly fade. He appeared on the left side of the mayor, sending out a stream of fire. Boom. The mayor retaliated with a large lightning bolt, which caused a huge explosion in the sky, blasting the clouds away from where they were fighting. Bang, boom, swoosh, buzz. They continued exchanging blows, and as expected, Gray was on the front foot. The mayor continued his offensive even though he was on the back foot. With every attack, he was pushed back by Gray's seemingly insurmountable strength. A few kilometers away from Frost City, while Gray and the others were still fighting with the instructors, a figure suddenly appeared in the sky above an empty field. It was an old lady with white hair and wearing a white gown. How did I get here? She questioned as she looked around. A small shadow suddenly came to view. That cat, what's it doing here too? A look of incredulity appeared on her face. The prince, she suddenly exclaimed, recalling what was happening before she appeared here. Even though she found her appearance here odd, she focused on getting back to Prince Caspar first. From what she sensed, he must be in trouble since a large-scale battle was taking place where he was getting married. She flew in the direction of the city, disappearing from view. Void, who was laying casually on a tree, didn't even try to make any efforts to stop her. He only watched on as she flew away. A few seconds later, a figure appeared above the field again. It was none other than that of the old lady. What's going on? She asked, looking around suspiciously. Other than the small black cat she saw lying on a tree, she couldn't see or sense anything else. She soon flew off again, heading in the direction of the city. But a few seconds later, she would appear in the field once again. When she appeared for the third time, she decided to take another route. She headed in the opposite direction, away from the city. But in a few seconds' time, she once again appeared in the empty field, at exactly the same spot. "What is going on?" she asked again, looking around. This was the strangest technique she had ever witnessed or experienced. She couldn't sense anything, yet she keeps getting teleported to the same location. She tried once again, but the result was the same. She tried again and again and again. However, no matter which direction she faced, she would appear back at the field again. "Who are you? Come out now. I'm Overlord Gale. You must have heard of me." The old lady announced her name in a bid to scare whoever was doing this. She made a name for herself hundreds of years ago, but she was still regarded very highly by the people of the Killen Empire. Even till this very day, her name still struck fear in the hearts of her opponents. From her perspective, she felt whoever was doing this wasn't powerful. That was why they resorted to such underhanded tactics in keeping her here. But she had to admit it was quite an impressive feat to create something like this. "Oh, you're tired of trying, and I thought I could rest a little longer." Void's childlike voice entered the old lady's ears. "Who are you? Show yourself," the old lady said calmly. "I'm not hiding now, am I?" Void asked oddly. He was literally lying on the tree closest to the field, and he had sensed the old lady's gaze a few times. So hearing her say he should show himself, he was taken aback. "I don't have time for games. The fifth prince is in danger, and the Emperor will not take it lightly with whoever you are if the prince were to face any danger as a result of your actions," the old lady warned. "Do I look like someone who is scared of the Emperor?" Void asked. "Come out. With this ability of yours, the Emperor would like to make you an ally," the old lady offered. Sigh. Looked down. Void finally gave up and said, when he saw the lady looking in her direction, "Over here." He stood up from his lying position, staring straight in the eyes of the old lady. "Nice try, but there's no way a cat can speak, nor be the one behind something like this." The old lady scoffed when she saw Void. "Old lady, didn't you see me in the city before you appeared here?" Void asked rudely. The old lady paused when she saw how Void's lips were moving along with the sound of every word. "Impossible," she muttered when she realized Void was really the one talking. "Believe me now?" Void asked. Chapter 594. The old lady stared at Void for a few seconds, trying to comprehend how it was possible. She knew of powerful magical beasts with high bloodlines that could talk after getting to a certain stage, but never had she heard of a small cat like this being able to speak. What are you?" she asked slowly. "I'm Lord Cat. Now kneel before my magnificence. Also, hand over all your shiny things." Void stuck out his chest as he said. The old lady froze when she heard Void's introduction, unsure of what to do. First, the cat referred to himself as a lord, and now he's seemingly trying to rob her. Such a strange world, she said to herself. "Come on, lady. I don't have all the time in the world." Void's voice interrupted her train of thoughts. "Oh, little cat, can you let me go so I can help the prince?" the old lady asked with a meek smile. "If you help me, the Emperor will give you all the shiny things you want." "Oh, shiny things. How big are they?" Void asked wide-eyed. "Very big." The old lady opened her hands wide. "I heard the Emperor has a nice shiny crown. If he can give me that, then I'll think about letting you go," Void said after a few seconds of silence. Yes, the crown is very shiny. He has 3, and all of them are very shiny. There are valuable gemstones engraved in all of them," the old lady said. She didn't know anything about Void, but from how he asked for shiny things during his introduction, she guessed he must be obsessed with them. And from his reaction, her guess was on point. Stupid animal, once I get out of here, you're dead, she thought internally. Nice. Thanks for the information. Now I know I don't have to steal only 1 crown, Void said with gratitude. Sorry. The old lady looked at Void, stunned by his words. Steal the Emperor's crown. Yeah, I figured you'd know a thing or two about him, so I tricked you into speaking of it, Void explained with a small chuckle. Little cat, that's not a wise thing to do. You're a magical beast that managed to gain intelligence. Why don't you let me out, and I'll give you all the hidden techniques we have on magical beasts. what do you say?" The old lady acted like she didn't hear Void's words and tried to coax Void again. "I'm not that dumb, lady. If you manage to get out of here alive, then you can thank your stars," Void said coldly. "What do you mean?" The old lady's expression changed. "In my domain, I'm God," Void replied. With the end of his statement, the space around them began to crack. The old lady could literally see cracks opening up in the sky, and the aura from within it terrified her. Wait, a domain?" she asked in shock. "Oh, judging from your reaction, this is not the first time you're hearing of domains. Looks like you're wiser than I thought," Void answered. After he finished refining the dragon blood essence, he awakened his domain. This first domain he awakened was the space domain, and he couldn't be happier. When he brought the old lady here, he decided to try out the ability of the domain, and he had been impressed by it so far. The distance of the domain was around 400 to 500 meters, and with the increase in his strength, the domain will continue to expand. The O'Brien family was already regarding Ellis to be a genius amongst geniuses, because of how quickly he was able to awaken his domain. However, if they were to hear of Void's case, they might faint from the sheer shock. One has to know that Ellis was already in the Sage Plane, so he wasn't too far from awakening his domain. Void, however, was still a rank 5 magical beast, which was equivalent to the Overlord plane. This was something unheard of. The last time a domain was used in this world was during the ancient times, the Great War of Gods. "I never thought I would get to experience one in this lifetime," the old lady muttered, still in shock. "Lady, you must be crazy. This place is too small, so you haven't been able to see things. Unfortunately, this is the end for you," Void said. The cracks in the sky continued increasing, slowly sucking in anything around them. The old lady looked around and attacked. According to what she read about, a domain could forcibly be destroyed if the creator was weaker than the person trapped inside. Never in a million years does she think that Void was more powerful. Actually, she even felt pity for him, because even with such a powerful ability, he was too weak. Bang! Her attack went into one of the cracks, and a powerful shockwave came out from the crack. After a few seconds, it started to flicker before fading. Void wasn't downhearted when one of the cracks was destroyed by the old lady. He knew she wasn't someone weak. A tornado rose up from the ground, trying to destroy all the cracks that were close to her. As time went on, the tornado started to send out wind blades. While the old lady moved out on her own, her speed was on another level. She wasn't called Overlord Gale for no reason. When she rose to fame, she was regarded as one of the fastest elementalists in the Azura Empire. Even lightning elementalists paled in comparison to her speed. A few seconds later, she was holding onto Void, with a wind blade in her hand, ready to slice it through the body of Void. "Little cat, I like you, or else you would be dead. Let me go, and come with me freely. Maybe then you can join us," the old lady offered. "I'm not interested in becoming allies with the Emperor," Void replied. "Also, over here." The old lady turned in the direction of the voice, and to her surprise, Void was standing in the sky, perfectly fine. She hurriedly looked at her hands, and there was nothing there. "How did I already told you, in my domain, I am God," Void replied before his size suddenly started to increase. Chapter 595. What? The lady exclaimed when she saw Void's current size. From being slightly larger than a human's palm, Void was currently well over 3 meters tall and over 5 meters long. He was currently no different from a magical beast found in the forest. Void suddenly disappeared, appearing a few inches away from the old lady. The second he appeared, he swiped his left claw at the lady. Bam! His claw hit a wind screen that the lady placed in front of her just in time to protect herself from his attack. Ka-cha! The sound of wind screen breaking sounded out, before the claw attack continued on its track, heading towards the old lady. The old lady was forced to place her hands in front of her as a form of protection, while not only enforcing them, but also setting up a wind protection around them. With the powerful wind rotating around her hands, it would be difficult for anything to get through it. At first, they managed to stop Void's claws, but a few seconds later, she was sent flying from the force of the attack. She couldn't contend with Void when it came to raw strength, especially with Void's current size. Before she crashed to the ground, Void appeared behind her, swiping his claws at her back. Bang! It connected, opening a large wound on her back, while also sending her flying in the direction she was coming from. Void disappeared again, appearing in front of her. The old lady, who was already injured, couldn't afford to take another direct hit from Void. Without delay, she covered herself with a wind dome that sent wind blades in Void's direction. Void didn't panic, and as if flickering, he would disappear and appear in a matter of seconds, dodging the wind blades that were coming his way. He made sure he didn't get out of the way, so he could continue smacking the old lady. He covered his claws with the darkness element, and as the lady got close, he attacked again. Bang! This time, the impact was so great that the lady crashed directly into the ground, causing a small dust cloud to rise into the air. A few seconds later, the dust cloud settled, but the lady was nowhere to be seen. Void didn't panic, his domain was still active, and if the old lady tried to leave the area, she would be brought back to the middle once again. After waiting for over 20 seconds, Void paused and looked in the western direction. Smart, he thought to himself. The old lady had already marked the spot where she would return after getting through, so she stopped there and started attacking it. If the domain wasn't powerful enough, then it would break apart. This was Void's first time using it, so he wasn't 100% used to it. With a thought, he appeared behind the old lady and nudged her past the mark. After she got past the mark, she appeared in the middle of the field once again. Swoosh! She was welcomed by Void's claw, which was already waiting for her. This was Void's domain, and since he was a space elementalist, he could travel faster here compared to others. Bang! The old lady slammed into the ground again, and within a few seconds, she appeared in front of Void, who was already prepared. Bam! He attacked again. This time, a huge gash opened up on the old lady's right shoulder. Boom! She crashed into the ground, but unlike the previous times, she didn't try to escape. The reason for this was because Void sensibly reduced the range of the domain, so instead of the almost 500 meters mark, it was around 350 meters. Even if she could destroy the domain, there was no way Void would allow her to do so. His recent action is proof of that. But what frustrated her was that Void was clearly more powerful than she was, so there was no way she could fight against him, especially in this form. Not running anymore? Void asked when he saw the lady after the dust died down. Look here, Black Cat. You don't want to irritate me, the old lady warned while glaring at him. Actually, I'm done playing with you, Void replied, and the area around the old lady suddenly started to disintegrate. The old lady looked around, terrified by what she was seeing. She sent out an attack, but the attack was easily consumed by what was coming in her direction. She couldn't see it, but she could sense a powerful attack coming in her direction. This was Void's space elemental attack, spatial distortion. Since he was in his domain, he could easily hide it from his opponent's view. The most interesting thing about his domain was that he could easily integrate it into the real world around him, and no one would know. The old lady looked around, hesitant of which side she should take. She had previously sent an attack in one direction, so she knew that side wasn't safe. Coming to a quick decision, she sent an attack in all directions, but her expression changed drastically when she realized all of them had been consumed. Lord Cat, please, can you forgive me? The old lady didn't know when she changed the way she addressed Void. Even though she had been alive for a long time now, she still didn't plan on dying yet, especially being killed by a small cat. Well, Void wasn't small currently, but it didn't matter. She just didn't want to die in the paws of a magical beast. Now you're respectful. Unfortunately, it's too late. Void reverted to his original size, grinning wide as the lady's hands started disintegrating. The old lady screamed as she watched her hands disappear before her. Before long, she too vanished. It was like she never existed. She doesn't even have any shiny things. Gem PH. Since the Emperor has 3 crowns, they will do, Void said before turning towards the city. Chapter 596. Grey should be done by now, Void said before disappearing. The forest soon regained its silence. Looking at the place, it was like nothing happened. Frost City. High in the sky above the mayor's manor, Grey and the mayor were just facing off, about to start their battle. Swoosh. Boom. Grey attacked with a lightning ball. The mayor replied with a lightning bolt, striking Grey's attack. Grey's attack was the winner in the struggle, quickly destroying the mayor's lightning bolt. before it continued moving in the mare's direction. The mare evaded to the side, but his expression changed when Gray appeared beside him, attacking with his fist which was covered with blue flames. Bang! Boom! The punch sent the mare flying. Before the mare managed to regain his composure, Gray appeared beside him and attacked again. Bang! Boom! The mare was knocked in the opposite direction, suffering burns on his back, with a few of his ribs broken. Blood was already dripping out from his mouth and nose due to internal injuries. Buzz! He enveloped himself with lightning, and just as Gray was about to attack again, he attacked, punching his opponent with a terrifying blow. Bang! The attacks collided, causing a loud explosion that pushed both fighters back. Gray was the one who had the better of the explosion, since he was able to block most of the impact. The mare, on the other hand, was further injured, suffering heavy injuries on his right hand. The sleeves of his shirt had been destroyed, while his flesh was burnt on different parts. He didn't let it hold him down as he attacked once again. Swoosh! Bang! Buzz! Boom! They continued exchanging blows, with Gray mostly sending the mare flying. The injuries on the body of the mare continued stacking, and before long, he could barely breathe properly. Boom! The mare was sent crashing into the ground after trying to block Gray's mixed attack of fire and lightning. The impact of the explosion destroyed the mare's left hand. Bang! The mare crashed into the ground, causing a huge dust cloud to rise into the sky. Unlike before, the mare didn't stand up immediately. Even after the dust cloud died down, the body of the mare could be seen on the ground, with blood-stained clothes. He was barely recognizable. Gray slowly flew down from the sky, floating above the mare's presently motionless body. The mare opened his eyes, staring at Gray, who was above him. He tried to speak, but all he could do was cough out blood on multiple occasions, unable to even pick himself up. "I'll need a messenger to send to the Emperor, and you'll be a great one," Gray said while looking at him. "Void, are you done?" He communicated with Void telepathically. "I'm already here," Void replied before appearing a few meters away from them. "Okay," Gray nodded when he saw him. "Did you know the Emperor has 3 shiny crowns?" Void suddenly asked. No, I did not," Gray paused before answering. "Well, now you do. And guess what?" Void spoke excitedly. "What?" Gray asked, sensing a headache coming his way. "I'm going to steal all of them," Void declared. "Nice. But you do know that there are Sage Plane experts hiding inside the palace, right?" Gray reminded him. "Damn it. I'll steal it when he leaves the palace then," Void said. "I don't think he ever leaves the palace. That's the safest place for him." "But can't you hide from them?" Gray asked. I can, but there are some cases where some people are sensitive to spatial tunnels. I can't really take that risk," Void replied. Gray was left speechless. This was the first time Void was thinking of the consequences of things. Looks like he's not too confident in his abilities to escape from a Sage Plane elementalist. It's good that he knows his limits, Gray thought to himself. He had always looked at Void as a careless individual. Well, given all he had done since he met him, he could be said to be careless. But from his words, the only reason he did those things was that he was confident in his abilities to escape. "What do you want?" The mayor managed to speak up, albeit his voice was barely audible. Gray, who zoned out while speaking with Void, looked at the mayor again. "Tell the Emperor that he should stop searching for me and my friends. We have no interest in his empire nor the scuffle with the other empires. That's all," the mayor asked after managing to get in a sitting position. "Oh, as a reminder, tell him the princes here will just be a warning. If he persists, then I'll hunt down every single child of his." Gray's eyes went cold, sending a chill down the back of Prince Casper. "What do you plan to do with the prince?" the mayor asked. "Nothing important. I'll just destroy his cultivation as a warning to his father." Gray shrugged. "But I don't have any problems with you." Prince Casper chimed in when he heard Gray's words. "Yeah, but your father does. I do not take things out on others, but seeing how your father acts, I felt it would be better to give him a taste of his medicine," Gray said. Alice and Reynolds were back. They were able to successfully hunt down the 5 instructors who were trying to escape. When they heard Gray's words, neither of them showed any signs of stopping him. Alice already hated Prince Casper, and if she was the one making the decisions, then she'll kill all the princes. You can't do this to me," Prince Casper begged. "You're lucky he's sparing you. If it was up to me, you'd already be dead," Alice said coldly. The mayor struggled to get to his feet. Please, think this over. Doing this will only infuriate the Emperor. I've already thought about it. Talking nicely with the Emperor will not make things better. I need to show him my resolve. If he messes with me, I'll raise the entire empire down if I have to. Gray said coldly. His bold statement terrified everyone present here. Chapter 597. Frost City. Rice Manor. Father, I think you should hide with the family for now, Alice said to her father, who was seated on his seat, staring at the elders of the family. The commotion caused today will surely make the Emperor send people here in no time. If we stay here, we'll definitely be attacked, Sasha said to her father. Donald looked at the elders before moving his gaze slowly to the cause of problems. Gray was sitting at the side of the hall, not saying anything. He even had his eyes closed, not interested in the decisions of the Rice family. If not for Alice, he wouldn't even come here. Gray, I'm sorry for what happened the last time. Donald apologized for his past actions against Gray. Oh, it's nothing. I've already forgotten about it, Gray replied without even opening his eyes. Donald shook his head. We'll follow Alice's words. For now, there's nothing we can do to go against the Emperor, and given what happened here today, the Emperor will be furious. He was still in shock because of Gray's actions. Gray was true to his words, and he not only crippled Prince Casper's cultivation, but that of all the princes present as well. Even the princesses weren't left out. He went into the city and searched for every single one of them. The mayor was a hopeless spectator who could do nothing but watch. He knew going back to the Emperor with what just happened would make him suffer a painful punishment from the Emperor. But since he was almost at the peak of the Overlord plane, the Emperor wouldn't kill him. With the war going on, the Emperor needed all the strength he could find. Donald was stunned by the ruthlessness of Gray. For someone so young, he never thought he would be so cold. Thank you, Father. Alice heaved a sigh of relief when her father finally agreed to her suggestion. She had brought it up before they showed up at the wedding, but given her father's character, she thought he would never agree to it. But looks like he decided to do what's best for the family like he always does. Staying here would only put them at a huge risk. But there's something I still can't comprehend. What happened to the peak stage Overlord plane expert guarding the prince? Donald asked, still in shock. He clearly sensed the aura when the old lady was coming, but the aura vanished without a trace, and he never sensed it again even till this very moment. She's been taken care of. Alice, we'll need to leave now. Given the mayor's speed, it shouldn't take him too long to reach the capital. It has already been a few hours now. Gray stood up from his seat. Alice hugged Sasha tightly, before hugging her father as well. We'll be going now, Father, she said. It's okay. With him around, you should be safe. Donald smiled. Alice nodded before following Gray and Reynolds. Just as they stepped out, she heard one of the elders of the family asking an important question. How can we move out our treasury? Gray paused when he heard this before turning to Alice. I brought a present for you. I didn't have the time to give it to you since we were fighting. A ring appeared in his hands before he tossed it in her direction. She froze when she saw it and subconsciously caught it. That's a storage ring? Ray already has one. I can give you a few more so that your family can use it to move out their items, Gray suggested. Oh, you finally managed to make one? Alice asked in shock as she held onto the ring. She was about to put it on when Reynolds' voice entered her ears. You should wash that first, he said. Why? Alice asked. Well, it was taken from the fingers of a dead person. Mine had a small dot of blood on it. Tell him to wash it, Reynolds said. Gray shook his head before taking out all the storage rings in his and covering them with water. He didn't forget to take the one with Alice. After a few seconds, he tossed 5 over to Alice. He taught her how to use it, and she managed to get the hang of it on the first try. She thanked him before rushing inside the hall once again. Since she didn't want everyone to know about it, she called her father to a secret place and passed them to him. She also taught him how to use it. Donald was left shocked and speechless when she saw the ring. Never in his life did he think there would be something like this. He could easily keep his treasures in a ring that would always be with him, and no one would even know about it. With great curiosity in his heart, he asked where it came from. When he heard Gray was the one who gave Alice the rings, He was once again stumped by the young man. He concluded that Gray was a mysterious person he shouldn't offend. He couldn't help but feel grateful that his daughter managed to make such a friend. From the strength Gray displayed back at the mayor's manor, he was certain that within a few years, he would be unrivaled in the entire Azure continent. At that time, he wouldn't need to hide with his family any longer. In fact, they would be at the very peak of the world. Alice stayed with him for a few more minutes before going back to meet up with Gray and Reynolds. Outside the Rice Manor. Where to now? Reynolds asked. It's only right we reunite with Klaus. He must be so lonely, Gray said. I'm surprised he's still alive. Alice said. Yeah, I can attest that the principal has beaten him up a few times. Gray said. He still hasn't replied to any of my messages. Do you think he's safe? Reynolds asked, a little worried. He should be, Gray said. He later added, we'll know when we get to where he is. Chapter 598. 5 days later. Thousands of kilometers away from Frost City. Gray, Reynolds, and Alice could be seen walking into the small town. Are you sure he's here? Alice questioned doubtfully. He's close. If he's not inside the town, he should be a few meters away from the town. Gray brought out the tracking device to get the location of Klaus. Klaus's light dot was just beside the trio's light dots, so he was only a short distance away from them. The trio walked into the town, looking around. Just as they were about to question Gray again, they saw the principal silently sipping tea from a tea shop. Look, it's the principal. Gray showed the principal to the others. Oh, how come Klaus isn't with him? Reynolds asked curiously. Let's go and ask him. Alice walked towards the tea shop. Before the trio got to the tea shop, the principal had already noticed them. Oh, it's you three. What are you doing here? The principal asked when he saw them entering the tea shop. Good morning, sir. We're here for Klaus. Alice greeted the principal politely. Gray and Reynolds followed suit as well. Klaus, he's training, the principal replied. Training? Gray asked, stunned. Yeah, he's been causing too many problems for a while now. If he isn't kept in check, he will most likely have destroyed this town by now, the principal said. Understandable. Gray and the others nodded in agreement. They all knew Klaus's behavior. Thank you for giving me that thing the last time, the principal said to Gray with gratitude. I can see that the principal has made a good advancement with its help. You're already part of the Sage Plane experts. Gray smiled as he replied. You noticed. The principal was a little shocked that Gray was able to easily sense he was already in the Sage Plane. What he found more confusing was that he couldn't sense Gray's cultivation stage. He could easily sense Alice and Reynolds' cultivation stage. But Gray, who was standing before him, was like a normal person. It was very easy to even forget his existence. This boy keeps getting mysterious, he thought internally. The reason he couldn't sense Gray's cultivation stage was that Gray had reverted back to hiding his aura. Given the fact that the principal was still in the first stage of the Sage Plane, there was no way he could sense his cultivation stage unless he wanted him to. Yes, Gray nodded. I can see your cat is back to normal, the principal said after noticing Void laying on Gray's shoulder. Yeah, where are Instructor Blake and Instructor Delia? Gray, when he couldn't find them around. They went out to train. If I'm not mistaken, they should be returning in a few days. The principal placed his hand on his chin thoughtfully. Klaus is just outside the town. There is a lake there. The principal told the trio of Klaus's location. All right, we'll be going then. Gray and the others bowed before leaving the tea shop. The principal watched them leave with a slight smile. He was impressed with the kind of friends Klaus was able to make. If not for Gray, he wasn't sure when he would be able to break through to the Sage Plane. That is, if he ever gets the chance to. Alice and Reynolds were two people regarded as geniuses in the Lightning Hall back at the Academy, and Blake does speak of them on some occasions. Of the trio, Gray was the most mysterious given his somewhat unknown background. Alice was from a big family, while Reynolds was from a small family that consisted of him, his younger brother, and his parents. Outside the town, a river could be seen running from the other side of the town. It ran all the way to the edge of a cliff before going down the waterfall. The river was around 150 meters wide, but close to the edge of the cliff, it started to narrow down. Below the cliff, a youth could be seen sitting below the waterfall. Even though the water was falling directly under him, not a drop of water could be seen on his body. With a well-chiseled face and short, well-trimmed hair, he was every lady's dream. The youth was none other than Klaus, who had been training for some days now. Although it was involuntary, he still persisted. He was sitting on top of a boulder with both eyes closed. His eyelashes fluttered a few times before he opened them. He exhaled a white puff of gas before he turned to the three shadows walking in his direction. "How did you three find me?" Klaus asked calmly. It was like he was a completely different person, and it stunned the trio. Even Void had his mouth wide open. Given Klaus's usual personality, he would have already tried to attack Gray for ghosting them for months, while he would have started cursing at Reynolds by now. "Are you alright?" Reynolds couldn't help but ask. "Of course, you can come closer. The waterfall isn't that bad." Klaus invited the trio over. Reynolds was the first to fly over, and just as he got close to the waterfall, a powerful energy sucked him into the river below him, dragging him inside. "Oh, I forgot to warn you about the trap that father placed here. Ha ha ha." Klaus burst out laughing when he saw Reynolds being dragged into the water. When Reynolds brought out his head, he was completely covered in a murky, gooey liquid that smelled terrible. He quickly jumped into the boulder Klaus was sitting on. "You bastard. You tricked me." Reynolds held him by the shirt, shaking him. Klaus was laughing at the top of his lungs when he saw Reynolds' condition. This was the only reason he had been cultivating so diligently. His father somehow managed to trap this sticky, smelly, gooey liquid below the waterfall, while also setting up a small-scale array that would drag anyone who tries to leave into it. He made it in a way that it would take a high-pressure water source before it can be removed. Even with Klaus's ability with the water element, he was unable to remove it. Gray stared at the water with an interesting look, before looking at Klaus again. Chapter 599. "I knew you can never change," Alice said after seeing Reynolds' condition. "It's who I am," Klaus replied with a grin. Gray stared at the water for some time, and to Void's dismay, he appeared above it. Just like Reynolds, he was quickly sucked in by a powerful energy. Even when he tried resisting it, he was still dragged in. Void was on his shoulder, and before he could react, he too was also dragged in. The duo soon came out of the water, covered in the gooey liquid. Gray dragged Void with him as they stepped under the waterfall. Klaus, who was previously blocking the water from hitting him, had already stopped after being touched by Reynolds. Alice facepalmed when she saw this. How does the brain of boys even work? Gray was the most serious and thoughtful person amongst the three boys. Yet, here he was, jumping in a gooey liquid that stinks. "It works in ways you cannot comprehend," Klaus replied while smacking the back of Gray as he burst out laughing. Reynolds joined in as well. Gray shook his head with a light smile. The only reason he tried it was to see what the principal did. The small time he spent trying to resist the array has given him a small knowledge of the array the principal made. But he still isn't aware of what the gooey substance was made of. "Where have you been all this while?" Klaus turned to Gray and questioned. "All right, since we're all here now, I guess it's time I told you all. I went to another continent," Gray said. There was no use in trying to keep it to himself any longer. "Another continent? There's another continent?" Klaus asked, shocked. Alice perked her ears when she heard this. This was her first time hearing of this, and unlike Klaus, Gray wouldn't joke with a thing like this. "Yeah, remember when I was trying to heal Void?" Gray asked. The trio nodded. "Well, I encountered someone in the magical beast forest. He should be around 5 years older than us, but he's already in the mid-stages of the Sage Plane." Gray went on to tell them about his first encounter with Ellis. He also added the part where Ellis pretended he was very weak, so he could get help. And just as he expected, he saw Klaus whispering something to Reynolds about keeping notes, so they could do this in the future. They were left in awe when Gray told them about his experiences while traveling in the Aurora continent. When they heard of how he dominated the Origin Plane rankings in the Aurora continent, they all felt sad, since they were unable to partake in it, especially Alice, who enjoyed fighting. Klaus and Reynolds enjoyed the part of the story when Gray was traveling with Sylvia. He also told them about necromancers, and the thought of fighting against corpses freaked Alice out. "We have to go there," Klaus concluded when Gray was done with his story. "Yeah, it will take tons of essence stones. Luckily, I'm not short on that," Gray said, before adding with a smile. "Did I tell you of the part where I helped Ellis fight against a bandit group? Damn it, you had so much fun," Klaus said with a sad face. "Yeah, and almost died more times than I can count." Gray added. I forgot to tell you. Reynolds suddenly stood up. What? Klaus's facial expression turned dull. He could already hear the excitement in Reynolds' voice, so he knew it was something fun that he missed out on once again. We barged into a wedding. Reynolds started to talk about the battle at Frost City Mayor's Manor. Damn it, stop. Klaus tried to close his mouth when he heard of how they stopped the wedding and started fighting against the instructors. Gray and Alice laughed out loud when they saw his look. They stayed there a little while longer with Gray and the boys sitting under the waterfall, and Alice sitting below a tree not far from the water. Gray took them out of the boulder with the space element. He still wasn't confident in being able to resist the energy from the array the principal made. Even though he might have more knowledge on arrays compared to the principal, he had lesser experience. Klaus almost hugged the ground when he finally left the boulder. He had been stuck for so many days that he lost count. The principal made sure it was impossible to leave the place, well, without the space element that is. Going in was easy, leaving was another case. But with the space element, it was not even a challenge. Gray and the boys were already all dried up. Amongst the trio, Gray was the one who let the water crash into his body more. This was possible due to his strong physique. Void was already out of there, sitting on Alice's lap after he removed the gooey substance from his body. They didn't stay close to the waterfall any longer, opting to go over to meet the principal. Void was able to easily locate him, so they didn't have to search. How come your communication device is with the principal? Gray couldn't help but ask. Well, he didn't want me distracted, so he took it as well as the other one, Klaus explained. Oh, okay. You're already in the 4th stage of the Overlord plane, Gray said. Yeah, thanks to my diligent training. I broke through 2 days ago, Klaus said proudly. Diligent. The principal had to force you to train. Reynolds mocked from the back. What do you mean? I trained on my own, Klaus retorted. You want to fight? Reynolds poked him at the back, trying to provoke him. It's been so long we last saw. If I were to beat you up today, it would feel like I'm bullying you, Klaus scoffed. It was like he was stronger than everyone in the group. Will you die if you don't brag? Alice asked with a shake of her head. Most likely, Klaus and Reynolds replied simultaneously, before bursting into laughter. Chapter 600. The group walked towards the town, joking around. Alice suddenly asked the important question. What now? I can't really say for now. My original plan was to take you 3 with me to the Aurora continent. Given your present elemental grades, you all wouldn't have a problem with quickly advancing there. Gray told them his plans. I have no problems with that, Klaus said. Same here. Reynolds agreed with Gray's plan. You all don't have any problems with leaving, but I do, Alice said. Didn't you say your father agreed to hide with the rest of your family? Klaus asked. Yeah, but I can't freely leave with the present situation. If it were before, at least I'll know the Emperor wouldn't try to harm them. But now, the case is a little complicated, Alice said, a little worried for her family's safety. That might be a cause for worry, but they should be fine, right? Gray asked with uncertainty. I can't say for sure. If any of them were to be caught, it will mean the others will most likely come out to help as well, Alice said. What do we do about it now? Klaus asked. The principal is the only one in the Sage Plane expert on our side, so there's no way we can fight against them head-on. If the Azure Empire weren't looking for us as well, we might have teamed up with them. But presently, we're hunted by all, having no allies, not even from our empire. Although I'm acquainted with the Lens organization, there's no way they would want to go against the 4 empires because of me. Gray accessed their options, and to be honest, it wasn't really good. The expression of the others turned sour. Reynolds and Klaus were especially angry. Who even found out about you acquiring the Great Earth Essence liquid? Klaus complained. I have no idea. I can ask old man Gerald for help with that though. But that really isn't our main concern, Gray replied. Well, I'd like to have a heart-to-heart talk with whoever the person is, Klaus said. That person is the cause of all our worries. It's only right we paid whoever it is a visit, Reynolds added. We'll talk about that later. For now, settling the issue with Alice's family comes first, Gray said. You're right, but I just want to make sure we put that person at the back of our minds, Klaus said. We should go back to the principal for now and hear what he says, Alice suggested. Back at the town, you shouldn't worry about them. they wouldn't come out so quickly after just going into hiding, the principal said. The four youths nodded to the principal's words. So what now? Klaus asked. Staying under the waterfall alone for days made him extremely bored. If he doesn't do anything exciting soon, he might go crazy. We should head over to the location we agreed to rendezvous with Blake and Delia, the principal said. The four youths stared at each other, helpless. Moving with the principal will restrict them. Well, only Klaus and Reynolds, since they wouldn't be able to do anything crazy. All right. Gray and Alice nodded. Klaus and Reynolds agreed begrudgingly. It wasn't like they had any choice. Good, we'll be leaving tomorrow. The principal smiled. The four of them nodded before getting up. Just as they were about to leave, the principal told Gray to stay behind. Have you been able to find out anything about Chris? The principal asked. Nothing. I asked Old Man Gerald to help me with it as well, but he found no traces of him. I think there's a chance that he must have left the continent, Gray said. Left the continent? The principal asked. Gray's words piqued his interest. This was the first time he was hearing of someone leaving the continent. Yes, I could be wrong as well, but since he couldn't be found here, that's most likely the case. Gray went on to tell the principal of the Aurora continent. The principal was someone he trusted, so there was no need in hiding it from him. There's another continent. The principal lost his previous calm expression. If what Gray is saying was accurate, then it was an eye-opener. Gray nodded to his question. After getting confirmation from Gray, the principal couldn't help but chuckle softly to think there's a bigger world out there, and these fools are fighting for control over here. Gray didn't go into too many details, but he told the principal of the higher cultivation stages as well as the higher elemental grades. Hearing about youngsters who were already at the mid-stages of the Sage Plane, the principal was beyond stunned. If not for Gray's help, he wouldn't have broken through to the Sage Plane by now. Yet, there were people who were only a few years older than his son and are already stronger than he was. If I find out Chris is there, I'll probably kill him, the principal said, green with envy. What did all elementalists desire? To grow stronger. If they were to find a place where they could quickly advance, they would all go there. This is the reason why the trial land was highly sought after. Sending youths with great potential there will give them the chance to bloom. From Gray's words, the elemental essence in the Aurora continent was higher and denser than that of the trial land. Gray compared the purity from the areas he had reached in the trial land. According to what was said, the deeper one goes into the trial land, the purer the elemental essence. But from the area he stopped, the Aurora continent was better than the trial land in respect to elemental essence. Gray went to meet up with his friends after speaking with the principal a little longer. The principal asked if he had found his parents as well, and he told him the answer. The principal suggested there was a possibility they might be in the Aurora continent, which was the same as Gray's thoughts. That day soon came to an end. The next day, the group prepared themselves to travel with the principal, and just before they left the town, a terrible news got to them. Instructor Blake and Delia had been caught by warriors from the Blue Wind Empire. Chapter 601. How did you find out about this? The principal turned to Gray anxiously. Old Man Gerald told me about it a few minutes ago. I have a communication device that I use in talking to him, Gray replied. Damn it. Klaus clenched his fists angrily. Can you confirm when they were caught? The principal asked calmly. They couldn't rush into making any decisions, since it might be a trap for them. Information is a valuable asset in their current situation. A simple misinformation could easily lead them into a trap. He didn't doubt the credibility of the Lens organization, but there's also a chance that the Blue Wind Empire found a way to spread false information, and Old Man Gerald only told Gray out of his worry for him. All right. Gray nodded before communicating with Old Man Gerald. After a few minutes of silence, he told the principal what Old Man Gerald said. When the principal heard the location of where the duo was caught, his calm expression changed. If he was previously scared because of misinformation, now he was 100% certain that they were caught. He originally sent the duo on an errand to meet up with a friend of his around the borders of the Blue Wind Empire. That was their destination. That bastard to think that he would betray me, the principal said angrily. What do we do now? Gray asked the principal. I'm going to save them. They were caught last night, so there's still hope for us before they are taken to the capital. And since the Blue Wind Empire aren't sure if any of you is in possession of the Great Earth Essence liquid, they wouldn't be too hard on them. They also know that Blake and Delia aren't their targets. The only reason they were caught was their connection with me. The principal said, "You can't go alone, father, we can help." Klaus rejected the idea of his father going alone. "Stay here and keep still. I can't take the risk of taking you along. You're the reason they were captured. You going there will put you in danger." The principal looked at Klaus sternly. "That's all the more reason I have to go. I can't just stay here and watch as you head into a trap." Klaus said, "We might be of some use, sir." Gray stepped up as well. "No, you four will stay here and continue your training. Once I've settled things there, I'll come back." The principal said, "Staying close to you is safer. Also, we can also render assistance if you need any. I have a special method of traveling, but I'll have to set up an array first." Gray tried persuading. The principal didn't know of his space element. He could hide it under the guise of an array. The array used in entering the trial land will make things easier for him. After continuous persuasion from the group, the principal finally agreed to let them come with him, only under the condition that they did exactly as he said. The group agreed to his condition, and they started their journey towards the border of the Killen Empire, just by the Blue Wind Empire. Before they left, Gray made a teleportation array by the waterfall, so that they could use it in escaping at a desperate time. Later that day, the group got to the border separating the Killen and Blue Wind Empire. Since they could all fly, it didn't take them too long. After 4 hours of constant flight, they got to their destination. When they got there were warriors from the Killen Empire, walking around the woods trying to locate spies from the Blue Wind Empire that were trying to cross into the Empire. The principal was able to easily hide his aura from the warriors. Gray and Void followed suit. The other 3 had a little difficulty with it, but the principal waved his hands, and the problem was solved. Gray was in the midst of creating an array to help with hiding their aura. When he saw the principal had already helped out, he stopped. With everything prepared, the group sneaked through the woods, entering into the Blue Wind Empire with no fuss. The principal's plan was for them to kidnap a warrior, then extract information from the said warrior. It didn't take long before they found their first target, but it was unsuccessful. This person had no clue about Blake and Delia's capture. The principal quickly knocked out the warrior, before using his superior spiritual energy to try to manipulate the memories of the warrior. He couldn't get information from it. He only wanted to erase the meeting between them. Killing the warrior would have been the easier option, but if this warrior were to be killed, it would alert the others that there was a threat in the woods. Since this wouldn't be the only person they would interrogate, they couldn't kill everyone they encountered. 30 minutes later, "We need to head deeper into the Empire. I think only those at the Overlord plane might have a clue about the whereabouts of the instructors," Gray suggested after over 30 minutes of fruitless interrogations. The principal agreed to his suggestion, and they started to head deep into the Empire. According to the message they received, Instructor Blake and Delia were caught at the border of the Blue Wind Empire, and the principal's friend was also staying around there. The only reason they didn't head to that spot immediately was the fear of it being crowded with people. Normally, he would have to go and search for Blake and Delia if they didn't return soon, and his friend's place was where he would go, since that was where he sent them to. The only advantage they currently have is that no one knew he had broken through to the Sage Plane. When he helped Klaus the last time, he made sure to kill the person who captured him. The only reason the news of the battle spread out was that some passers-by were around. Chapter 602. The group went further into the Blue Wind Empire, and before long, they left the woods, entering the normal road with a town not too far from it. It was naturally occupied by mostly warriors, since it was close to the borders. The principal went close to the town and spread out his spiritual senses. After thoroughly sweeping the place, he found the location of 3 different Overlord plane elementalists. One was in the late stage, with the other 2 in the mid stages. "I'll take down the one in the late stage. Gray, you and Klaus will take on one of those in the mid stages, while Reynolds and Alice will take care of the other one." The principal quickly divided them. Klaus and Reynolds were about to refute when they heard the principal's stern warning. "This is not a joke, it's a matter of life and death. If any of you is caught, the consequences will be fatal to the rest of us," he said. "Don't worry, father, I can take care of this person on my own. With Gray's help, it's a piece of cake, Klaus said. Alice reassured the principal that she could keep Reynolds in check. After the principal finished speaking with them, he left, heading towards the western part of the town. All 3 Overlord plane elementalists were positioned in 3 different parts of the town, and they were all at the edges. The principal told the group that if they could, they should take down the warriors without making any fuss. With the element of surprise on their side, they shouldn't have any problems with taking out someone who doesn't even know they are coming. In the southern part of the town, Gray and Klaus were sneaking through the road, hiding in plain sight. They hid their appearance and aura, so they weren't recognized by the few townspeople they encountered. A few minutes later, they soon got to a small house that had the biggest courtyard they had seen in the town so far. The expert should be here, Klaus whispered. Yeah. Gray nodded while staring at the building, trying to pick out the exact location of the Overlord plane elementalist. There were almost 6 guards or so outside the building, ready to alarm the expert in case someone they couldn't handle appeared. Tell me once you get his location, I can immobilize him from here, Klaus said. He wasn't interested in the 4 guards standing outside the building. Gray nodded, and a few seconds later, he gave Klaus the exact location and where to hit if he was going to attack. Klaus nodded before taking in a deep breath. It's been a while I used this. He placed his hand in front of him, and a tiny needle made of ice started to form. The temperature around the ice needle was so low that the air seemed like it wanted to freeze. Even Gray, who was standing close to Klaus, couldn't help but take a step back. His ice ability is beyond compare, Gray praised. He didn't dare to speak it out loud given Klaus' personality. He would brag about it for months. The ice needle stayed above Klaus's palm for almost 30 seconds before it suddenly disappeared from view. Unlike Gray and Void's space element, the ice needle disappeared as a result of its amazing speed and its small size. Whoosh! The ice needle pierced through a small spot on the wall. It was so tiny that even if someone was standing there, they wouldn't notice it. Let's go, the person's immobilized, Klaus urged. Gray nodded before flickering. A few seconds later, a middle-aged lady was on his shoulder. Her body was completely white, and one could see chilled smoke coming from her body. With the lady on his shoulder, Gray and Klaus returned to the location they planned to meet up with the principal. They were the first set to get there. A few minutes later, the principal appeared with a lady tied on his arms. She was knocked out, but in a better situation, compared to Gray and Klaus's victim. When the principal saw the duo already waiting for him, he was slightly taken aback. How long have you been here? He asked. A few minutes ago, Gray replied. The principal didn't say anything further. Touching the lady on the ground, he realized she was out cold. Like literally cold. He didn't need anyone to tell him it was Klaus doing. They stayed for almost 5 minutes before Alice and Reynolds came back with a short man on their shoulder. The man was slightly black, which indicated that he had been zapped by lightning. All right, time to wake them up, the principal said. After he sealed the cultivation of the trio, he woke them up. When the trio opened their eyes, their initial reaction was to try to move, but unfortunately, they realized they had been bound to a chair. They stared at the group, and Gray and his friend's face soon came into view. They looked at the faces with a sense of familiarity, seemingly trying to recall where they had seen the faces before. It didn't take long before one of them recalled it. To think you four would be so bold, the short man said coldly, saying this is quite funny when coming from you. Have you seen your situation? Klaus mocked. The principal stepped forward to take control. Where are the duo you people caught last night? What duo? We've captured a lot of people these past days, the man asked, feigning ignorance. You can't activate the array if that's what you're trying to do. The principal's aura went cold. When they went over to catch them, he found out about the array placed around the town. Now he understood why all 3 individuals were in their given locations. It was so they could activate a powerful killing array. If a peak stage Overlord plane elementalist were to be caught in it, then that person would surely meet their end. Chapter 603. You have only one option right now. Either you talk, or I forcefully read your minds, the principal said. The trio looked at each other, all knowing the risk that came with what the principal wanted to do. If there was so little as a simple mistake, then they might lose their minds. Isn't that a little too excessive? The late-stage Overlord plane elementalist asked. Tell me what I want, and I'll let you three go. The principal said. Who are you talking about? The late-stage Overlord plane asked in defeat. He just couldn't take the risk of having the principal forcibly go through his memories. It was not an easy skill, and he had heard of countless people losing their minds after this was done on them. Some even become brain dead. The principal nodded after seeing them agree. He told them of Blake and Delia, and the expression of the trio showed that they had a clue of their whereabouts. So it's you people from the Killing Empire, I should have guessed. One of the mid-stage Overlord plane elementalists said. Yes, now tell us where they are if you want to keep your lives. The principal didn't hide their identity since asking for the whereabouts of Instructor Blake and Delia had already given them away. Wait, that means you four are the youngsters the Emperors are all searching for. The late-stage Overlord plane elementalist pointed at Gray and his friends. Tell us what we need to know. The principal didn't allow the youths to speak. It was unnecessary. They are being taken to the capital. If I'm not wrong, they should be there by now. The man in the late stage said. All right. The principal nodded before quickly tapping on the shoulders of all three men. They suddenly felt the strength leave their bodies as they collapsed to the ground. Just as they were about to leave, Gray gave them another piece of information. The Emperor just sent out Sage Plane Elementalists after us. They have also heard of the capture of the instructors and are on their way there now. Gray said, expecting this from the Emperor. Since he crippled the princes and princesses, he had been waiting for the reaction of the Emperor, and he finally got it. The only issue they have now is that there is only one Sage Plane Elementalist on their side, and he is only in the first stage, whereas the Emperor has people in the second or even the third stage. HMPH. They're lucky I didn't kill the princes and princesses. Alice snorted coldly. This might be to our advantage, Klaus suddenly said. Huh. Everyone turned to look at him. He went on to explain, since my elder brother has already been taken to the capital, it would be extremely difficult for us to retrieve him, unless there's a way Void or Grey can easily sneak in and out. But if the Sage Plane Elementalists from the Killing Empire were to get in a brawl with the Sage Plane Elementalists from the Blue Wind Empire, it would make things easy for us. Grey and Void's ability thrive in chaotic situations, and a battle on that scale is the best thing, he added. The principal still didn't know of Grey and Void's space element, but he knew Klaus wouldn't carelessly send his friends to die. We should get there first. Once we see the situation, we'll decide if to use that method, or I'll take the risk of going in. The principal said, all right. The youngsters all nodded in agreement. The principal stared at the three men before tying them to a tree. He promised to let them live if they told him the whereabouts of Blake and Delia, but they never told him in what condition. With their cultivation crippled, it would take a miracle for them to untie themselves. They left the woods heading into the main empire. They quickly got a map to know their destination and hurried there. The principal hoped the group taking Blake and Delia to the capital was a little slow, so they could catch up with them. He made a route from his friend's place and the path he felt the people would take. Since they were all flying, they traveled thousands of kilometers in a matter of seconds. After what seemed like ages, they finally got to the city before the capital. From the map and the principal's route, the group taking Blake and Delia to the capital will most likely go through this city. I'll ask around if they stopped by. You four should stay put, the principal said before vanishing into the crowd that was heading into the city. Unlike Grey and his friends, he didn't have his poster hung all over. And since he was in the Sage Plane, he had a better chance of escaping. Damn it, these people are annoying, Klaus complained. I still don't understand why they are doing this, Reynolds said. They see us as potential threats, people who can endanger their present reign. As you can see, they are all trying to take control of all four empires, and we four are an anomaly that can't be trusted. Alice explained. Well, I'm not in any way interested in their power scuffle, Reynolds said. Yeah, but do you think the Emperors will believe you? Klaus asked. Even if we vow not to get involved in anything they do, they will always see us as threats. Haven't you heard of how they kill any person that has elemental grades higher than blue? Alice rubbed her head. The Emperor is a moron. He should have treated us kindly. I mean, that is what I would have done. Reynolds cursed the thinking of the Emperor. I can't really say what's going through the Emperor's head, but I believe he did this because he felt we're already at a level he couldn't control any longer. Especially given what has been going on with my teacher, Grey said. Chapter 604. The group waited for the principal in the woods for about 30 minutes or so before he returned. They passed through not too long ago, the principal said with a resigned look. If it was possible, he wanted to avoid a confrontation with any of the Sage Plane elementalists. Nor did he want to endanger Gray or Void, since sneaking into where Blake and Delia were kept would be a little dangerous. They must have already gotten to the capital by now, Alice said. Most likely, the principal said before turning to Gray. Is there a way we can track the movements of those old bones coming from the Empire? I'm not too sure. I'll ask Old Man Gerald. Gray brought out the communication device Old Man Gerald gave him and sent a message to him. He waited for almost 15 minutes before he got a reply. And even though they didn't get the accurate location, they knew the Sage Plane experts were already close to the Blue Wind Empire. And from what they heard, the Killing Empire seems to be launching an all-out attack on the Blue Wind Empire. From what Old Man Gerald said, not just the Killing Empire, but all 4 empires were preparing for a major battle, and it seems like the capture of Instructor Blake and Delia was the catalyst. The war has been going on for months now, and the empires are looking to resolve it once and for all. One of the factors pushing this battle was the acquisition of Blake and Delia. Whoever has them has a high chance of capturing Klaus or any of the other trio. What now? Reynolds asked. Since they're preparing for a battle, it means we can't act rashly. The Azure Empire will most likely be with the Blue Wind Empire on this. The principal said. Who do you think will take us if captured? The Blue Wind Empire or the Azure Empire? Klaus asked. What are you saying? Alice questioned, not happy with Klaus's question. His question drew the attention of everyone. I mean, think about it. The Blue Wind Empire is currently allied with the Azure Empire. But we all know there's a catch to it. If there's truly a way for them to extract our elemental cores, that means they will want to use it for themselves. Klaus went on to explain. Given the ambition of the Azure Empire, if they obtain them, then they would also wipe out the Blue Wind Empire as well. Gray completed Klaus's analysis. Correct, and the Blue Wind Empire is also aware of this, Klaus said. After hearing Klaus and Gray's words, the others nodded in agreement. Things will get even more chaotic, since the Blue Wind Empire already has the advantage, thanks to the capture of Blake and Delia. We should head to the capital for now. If there's an opportunity for us to take back the duo, we will, the principal said. Just as they were about to leave, Gray's communication amulet given to him by Old Man Gerald vibrated. He brought it out of his spatial ring and sent his spiritual senses inside. When he heard the content of the message, he stared at the people in front of him wide-eyed. Seeing his reaction, the others couldn't help but feel a sense of worry. What's wrong? Alice asked. The instructors, Gray said slowly. The hearts of everyone sank when they realized what he wanted to say had to do with the instructors. Yes, what happened to Blake and Delia? The principal asked anxiously. They escaped, Gray said, still unsure of what to feel. Haha, that's good news. Why are you acting like this if that's the news? Reynolds laughed before lightly hitting Gray on his shoulder for scaring them. You don't get it. If the instructors were captured, it meant people stronger than they were present there. These people will naturally be the ones to take them back to the capital, so escaping is not going to be easy, especially when they were already within a few hundred meters of the capital. Gray explained his worries. Do you think it's false information? The principal asked. Old Man Gerald would not tell me about this if the source isn't at least 70% accurate. Of course, I don't fully trust him. It's best we head to the capital to find out for ourselves. According to what he said, a battle broke out just before the capital, and the instructors used the chance to escape. Gray replied, all right. It's not like we have any other choices anyway. The principal and the others nodded. Gray found the escape of the instructors somewhat suspicious. If these people were as valuable as they make them be, there's no way the people taking them back to the capital will get careless. There's something fishy about their escape, Gray said to Void telepathically. What do you plan to do? Void asked. If possible, we'll question the instructors when we find them, Gray answered. Okay, Void replied. Oh, Gray. Gray looked at Void. Did you know that I love fish? Void asked. No, Gray thought for a while before responding. Okay, now you do. Once we're done with this, it'll be nice if we had fish. Void licked his lips as he said. Gray shook his head. At a time like this, Void was still thinking about food. The group soon started their journey to the capital. That's the only place they could get confirmation of the instructor's escape. The risk has gone up a notch, since people would be searching all over for the instructors. This meant that the chances of them being found were also high. Their only chance of escaping is that the person who finds them is not in the Sage Plane, so the principal could take care of them. Presently, all 4 empires were preparing for war, and there was unrest in the cities of all empires, especially the Blue Wind Empire. The main battle would be taking place around the Blue Wind Empire, due to them having instructor Blake and Delia. According to reports, the warriors of the Killing Empire would get to the borders of the Blue Wind Empire in a few hours. Chapter 605. Blue Wind Empire. Outside the capital. The principal and the group just got there after only about 30 minutes or so. They could have gotten here sooner, but the number of elementalists in the Overlord plane they encountered was far greater than their expectations. The increase meant that the report of Blake and Delia escaping was accurate. The principal was beside himself with joy. Now he didn't have to worry about their well-being. Should we join in the search for them? Klaus asked. I'll be able to find them soon. I just need to get a general overview of this area. Pass me the map, the principal said confidently. Klaus gave him the map that was in his possession. The principal looked at the map for almost 5 minutes before finally making a move. I know where they are, follow me, he said to youngsters. Gray and the others exchanged glances before following the principal. The principal was currently headed in the other direction, contrary to where most of the elementalists were searching. They soon got to where the capital was located, going past it. Just like most of the cities in the Azure continent, the capital of the Blue Wind Empire was also surrounded by forests. The principal headed to the forest behind the capital. When he got there, he did a quick sweep of the place. Got them, let's go, the principal said before rushing into the forest. The youngsters followed behind him, impressed at how quickly he was able to find the duo. They've escaped for over 30 minutes now, and the Blue Wind Empire has called out an array of people to search for them. Yet it took the principal only a few minutes of looking at a map, and he has already found them. There were a few people searching this area, but the group didn't have any issues with putting them down. They were only in the early and mid stages of the Overlord plane. Their job was to signal the others in case the duo was found in this area. Going up against an enraged Sage Plane elementalist, of course they stood no chance. A cave deep in the forest behind the capital. The principal and the group could be seen walking into the cave. After multiple twists and turns, the principal stopped in front of a dead end. He lightly tapped on the wall, and it came crashing down. When the wall crashed down, a tunnel was revealed to the group. Always so cautious. The principal chuckled as they walked into the tunnel. The group followed behind him, and they encountered 3 more places like this before an attack came crashing in their direction. When the 4th wall was destroyed, the principal was already prepared for this. He stretched out his hands and clamped onto the lightning spear coming their way. Is this how you greet your teacher? He asked after the dust settled. Teacher, it's you. Blake's voice could be heard from inside the cave. Who else? The principal asked with a smile finally appearing on his face since hearing about the capture of the duo. The principal. Delia's soft voice resonated from the cave. Yes, it's me. How are you doing? The principal stepped into the cave to welcome the sight of the duo in each other's embrace. I'm okay. He made sure nothing happened to me. Delia replied. Cough, cough. Klaus coughed as he walked into the cave, grinning from ear to ear. Beside him was Reynolds, who was also smiling widely. Alice had a soft smile on her face, while Gray was the only one who had his usual blank expression. When Delia saw Klaus and the others coming in, she quickly left Blake's embrace, her face red from embarrassment. She was already used to Klaus's teasing, but this was the first time she was with Blake, while other youngsters were present. Of everyone, Gray's poker face made her feel a little odd. For someone who has such a handsome face, you rarely smile. Delia commented on Gray's facial expression. Hello instructors. Gray greeted the duo with a soft smile. Even though he was acquainted with the duo, he still wasn't 100% free around them. How are you? Blake asked. I'm okay, Gray replied gently. Alice and the others shook their heads when they saw how quiet Gray was. How did you escape? The principal asked after they were done with greetings. Someone attacked the carriage taking us to the capital, and we used the opportunity to escape. The binds they used in holding us weren't strong from the start. Although they sealed our cultivation, I've learned a thing or two from you over the years, Blake explained calmly. Haha, that's my boy. The principal laughed happily. Teacher, how did you find us? Blake asked. You're my student, of course finding you will be easy, the principal said. Klaus went on to tell Blake of how his father managed to locate them just from looking at the map. Blake wasn't too surprised since the principal was the one who taught him almost everything he knew in life. What's happening now? The principal turned to Gray. Gray brought out the amulet old man Gerald gave to him. After a few minutes, he was given the news of the warriors from the Killen Empire, already getting close to the borders of the Blue Wind Empire. The Emperor of the Blue Wind Empire had already called all the experts from the Empire to head to the borders. When the group heard of what was happening, they couldn't help but gasp in shock, especially Blake and Delia. What the hell is going on? Blake asked, stunned. A war, that's what's going on, Klaus replied. But I never thought it had gotten to that stage yet, Blake said. Klaus used the opportunity to explain to them, telling them how their capture was the cause of the current all-out war. Are they that desperate? Delia asked. So it seems, Gray replied. Chapter 606. We should head back to the Killen Empire. It is the safest place for us now, the principal said. The others agreed to his words. After all, staying in the Blue Wind Empire was a little bit too risky. All right, we'll be going straight to the waterfall in that town. Gray stood up to say, there's a way we can get there instantly, the principal asked. Even though he heard of Gray and the others speaking about it, he still found it to be absurd. How could one just appear in another location instantaneously? It just doesn't seem plausible. Yeah, stand back. Gray nodded before he stepped forward. He soon started to make an array, quickly drawing the lines in the cave. Within a few minutes, he was done. Given their numbers, it would take quite a lot of stones to teleport them back to the Killen Empire. Gray brought out hundreds of essence stones, before placing around 50 in 8 different positions in the ARREY bullet. He was done with that. He told the others to stand in the array. Klaus and his friends stepped in without hesitation. The principal, Blake, and Delia had some doubts in their hearts, but still stepped in anyway. Gray did some hand seals and the array lit up. The group was covered by a bright white light, before they suddenly vanished from the position. The lights of the array died down, as well as the array lines. Whenever Gray makes these arrays, he always makes sure that only when they are under use can they be seen. Killen Empire. In a town close to the borders, at the waterfall, an array suddenly appeared on the ground before lighting up. Gray and his friends soon appeared after the light died dome. Wow, impressive, Klaus and Alice exclaimed. This was the first time they were using this array, and seeing how fast it made traveling seem, they couldn't hide their excitement. The principal exchanged glances with Blake and Delia, completely blown away. Reynolds was the only one who had a normal expression. He even stared at Klaus, as if he was looking at a villager. How's this possible? The principal couldn't hold in his curiosity any longer. It's the same as the array used in going into the trail land. I picked up a thing or two about it while I was there. Gray hid the existence of the space element from the principal. That's something else, learning something like this just from using the array once. You're truly a genius, the principal praised. Gray smiled softly without replying. After staying at the place for a while, they decided to head back to the town. There was an apartment the principal was staying in when he was here. Blue Wind Empire, the capital city, in the castle. The moment Gray and the others teleported from the cave to the Killen Empire, some figures sitting in a dark room stood up in shock. How's this possible? One of the figures covered with a cloak asked as he stared at the light dot on the table, which was on the other end of the table. The dot went from one place to another in a matter of seconds, and given the distance, it was impossible for anyone, even those in the Sage Plane, to move that quickly. Is this for real? Another person asked. After the sudden quick movement, the current movement of the light dot showed that it was still working perfectly. There's a way they moved from our empire to the Killen Empire in an instant. This will be a problem if they can do it again when surrounded. An old croaked voice said. Let's find a way to get there first, someone else said. The Killen Empire is really pushing it. Once we get those boys, they will all be sorry," a young voice said with gritted teeth. The people finally agreed on what to do before leaving the secret room. The light dot they were monitoring was something like a tracking device Gray made, but it was a little bit different. From their conversation, it was easy to see that the person they were tracking was none other than Instructor Blake and Delia. Killen Empire. Back at the town, the group had gotten to the house the principal brought them to. According to their plan, they would hide here for now, getting information from Old Man Gerald. Once things settled down, then they would head to the Aurora continent. Given the present growth of the youths, in a year or two, they should be able to break through to the Sage Plane. As long as they don't die, then they would be able to move freely in the continent without fear of being attacked by anyone. If they wanted, they could even get revenge on all the people that caused trouble for them. The next day, Gray and the principal were still inside the house, getting updates from Old Man Gerald. According to him, a small-scale battle broke out yesterday, but it was quickly stopped. But from how things were going, a greater battle will take place today or tomorrow. There was no way for them to sit and talk about the situation. The Killen Empire demanded the instructors, but the Blue Wind Empire told them they didn't know the whereabouts of the instructors. Even after getting confirmation, the Killen Empire refused to accept it. They felt since the Blue Wind Empire could capture them, then of course they could easily keep them hostage. Their escape might just be a pretense to get the others off their backs, making them feel as if they didn't have them, whereas they already have them locked in a dungeon. The group all felt relaxed, thankful for Gray's splendid work. Being able to take them from the Blue Wind Empire without a hitch, they didn't even have to worry about encountering anyone. As things stand, all they had to do was wait out the war, before going to a more secluded place and living for a few years there. Alice suggested they left now, but the principal felt given the movements of the troops, they might be noticed. After all, they were at the borders of the Empire, not too far away from where the battle would take place. There was no way anyone would believe that they were this close to where the battle was taking place. 2 days went by in a flash. The battle had already started, with casualties on all sides. The Stellar Empire had also sent troops to the other side of the Blue Wind Empire, trying to make a pincer attack with the aid of the Killen Empire. However, the Azure Empire stepped out as well, rushing to the aid of the Blue Wind Empire. The battle was currently in a stalemate, but this was because the Sage Plane Elementalists hadn't gotten involved yet. In respects to Sage Plane Elementalists, the Azure Empire is said to have more given their old history. The Killen Empire is said to be on almost the same level as them, but only when the battles start will they know who is stronger. Old Man Gerald was constantly giving the group updates on the battlefield, which has helped them. The principal knew Old Man Gerald, but he wasn't really close to him. After asking about the relationship between the duo, he found out it was all because of Chris, who was still missing. The whereabouts of Chris has been giving him a headache for a while now. It has been over a year now since he left, yet there has been no news from him whatsoever. Even with the war going on, there was still no news of him. The thought of Chris actually being in the Aurora continent started to dawn on him. It would not be a bad idea to go there, since according to Gray, it was a good place for them to grow stronger. It is said to be even faster than the trial land, and the principal was tempted by it. The battlefield. The Blue Wind Empire's camp. In one of the tents, 8 figures could be seen sitting in a round table. 5 of them were wearing black cloaks that covered their faces, while the other 3 wore white clothes. Of the 3, 1 of them was a youth in his early 20s, 1 was in his mid-30s, while the last was a well-built middle-aged man with long beards. "How are things going?" the middle-aged man asked. "We've been unable to get into the Killen Empire. Their Sage Plane Elementalists are vigilant, and WE Bullet V not been given the chance to go through," one of the cloaked men replied. "It's okay, just keep monitoring their positions. And make sure you don't alert the others. We can't have the Azure Empire finding out about this," the middle-aged man ordered. The cloaked men bowed before leaving the tent, leaving the other 3 alone. Chapter 607. After the departure of the cloaked men. "Father, do you think or can trust these people?" the youngest amongst the trio asked. "There's no need to worry. Although they are mysterious, I have 100% confidence in them. Over the past years, they've been helping me out with the issues of the kingdom," the middle-aged man replied calmly. understand. It's just that I tend to get this eerie feeling just by looking at them, the youngest said. It's because this is your first time speaking with them. Take your brother for example, he's not bothered by their presence. If you're going to be an important figure in the Empire's future, then you have to know them. Their strength is not something to joke with. The middle-aged man advised. All right, father. The young man bowed his head before leaving. This was the first time he was seeing his father's special guards, and to be honest, he was quite frightened by them. For someone his age, he never once thought he would be scared of someone he hadn't even seen fight before. With the young man gone, 2 people were left in the tent. Father, do you know where they are from? The man in his mid-30s spoke up. Ovi asked a couple of times, but they've never given me a clear answer. The only good news is that since I helped them when they were in danger, they felt indebted to me. With their help, we should be able to take control of this war even without those youths. Also, they are the people who suggested the method of removing the calls. The middle-aged man said, all right, father, but they're a risk factor as well. Given their knowledge, they should have a high cultivation stage, but they are still at the peak of the Overlord plane. The man asked suspiciously, don't dwell too much on this. It might cause you more harm than good. The middle-aged man warned. All right, father. The man in his 30s bowed before leaving the tent as well. When everyone left, the eyes of the middle-aged man suddenly went dark, and it seemed as if he had lost all intelligence. Dark lines started to crawl all across his body. Black smoke rose up from the side before a man who looked exactly like the middle-aged man appeared from the ground. His figure was dried up, and he couldn't stand straight. Kekiki, this technique is impressive. Who would have thought there's such a miraculous thing in this world? The man walked around his other self, examining the figure. The 5 men appeared soon after from a fog of black smoke as well. You said you'll give us a large number of Sage Plane Elementalists. Where are they? One of the cloaked men asked. Don't be in a hurry, my friends. You've already taken down all the Sage Plane Elementalists from my empire. With your strength, you can also take down the ones from the other 3 empires. The middle-aged man said, IV's not as easy as you think without your help. The ambush wouldn't have gone as planned. Also, I think I've found out how that person left your empire to the Killen Empire instantaneously. One of the figures said, oh, do tell then. The middle-aged man said, there's a space elementalist amongst them who is also good at arrays. You might not know of this, but from where we're from, these people are the most difficult to deal with. The reason I didn't think of it at first was that it never crossed my mind that someone like that would also be here, the cloaked figure explained. A space elementalist? The middle-aged man asked in shock. Yes, they have the ability to manipulate the space around them, and travel thousands of kilometers with nothing more than a blink. If they can create an array, then they can easily travel through all these empires in a matter of minutes. The cloaked figure explained. That's extraordinary. How come you don't have any? The middle-aged man was impressed by their description of a space elementalist. If they want to escape, then it is almost impossible to hold them back. All space elementalists can be said to be first-rated escape specialists. The cloaked figure said. The middle-aged man went silent for a while, accessing his options. Either way, we don't have to worry too much. I'll think of a way to draw over 1 or 2 of the Sage Plane Elementalists from the Azura Empire. You guys should be able to deal with them then, right? That's easy. We already have over 5 Sage Plane corpses. They can quickly take down a single person. One of the cloaked figures said. All right, that will be all for now. The battle is still ongoing, and I need to feed off the death essence spreading across the battlefield. In a few days, I should be able to break through to the Sage Plane myself. The middle-aged man said with sharp eyes. It is good that you've grown this much. One of the figures placed his hand on the shoulder of the middle-aged man. It's all thanks to your help, teacher. The middle-aged man bowed respectfully. All right, we should get going now. I believe the duo should be with their friends right now. The cause of those youths will be very tasty. The middle-aged man bowed respectfully as the group faded into the fog, disappearing. His eyes turned cold after their departure. I'll kill you all for killing Uncle. Just you wait until I get to the Sage Plane, he thought with gritted teeth. With the figures gone, he too started to fade away. The figure that looked exactly like him started to regain life once again, before walking to the bed in the tent to take a nap. In the entire Azure continent, only a few people have encountered these 5 cloaked men and survived. This middle-aged man was one of them. Surprisingly, he is also the Emperor of the Blue Wind Empire, taking control after the untimely death of his father. Chapter 608. Gray and his friends were still staying in the town close to the borders. It has been 5 days now since the war started, and things had started to heat up. Even though they weren't too close to the battlefield, they could feel the vibrations from the impact caused by the attacks. "Father, don't you think it will be best for us if we leave this place? Some of the townspeople are already moving out," Klaus suggested. "No, from what I know, the Killen Empire has the upper hand and is slowly forcing the forces of the Blue Wind Empire back. If any of us is seen, it would be disastrous for us." The principal rejected Klaus's idea. All right, father," Klaus replied with a dull expression. Honestly, the more he has to hide, the more hatred he develops for all 4 empires searching for them. Out of boredom, they even pressured Gray to ask Old Man Gerald about the identity of the young man who exposed Gray having the Great Earth Essence liquid. It didn't take a day before the report was given to them. Klaus and Reynolds planned on giving this person a slow death, making sure he suffers for all their present sufferings. Gray had been working on his arrays lately. For some reason, he had been getting an uneasy feeling. It was as if he could sense something bad wanted to happen, but he didn't know what it was. He wasn't the only one getting this feeling, even Void was feeling the same. At first, he thought it might be as a result of their connection, but Void said he could sense an eerie aura, something vile. Gray, on the other hand, couldn't sense it. Gray told the others of his feelings, and they brushed it to the side, saying it was a result of the current war going on, and them being so close to it. Even the principal didn't think too much of it, only somewhat increasing his vigilance. Gray finally decided it was best to send Void out. This was the best thing to do. With Void's abilities and his size, it would be impossible for anyone to notice him. As long as no one notices him, he could give Gray all the latest updates happening on the battlefield. With Void gone, Gray decided it would be best to make a teleportation array in the house they were staying in. This will help them in case of any mishaps. There are multiple places they could go within seconds, so it was better to be prepared. More days went by. The vibrations from the battlefield were getting stronger by the day. Void had been keeping Gray updated about the battle, while the others were lazing around or training. The principal was trying to see if he could make any advances in his cultivation while they were here. Klaus and Reynolds were lazing around as expected, with Alice mostly training. Instructor Blake and Delia were mostly out of sight, although whenever they were seen, they were training as well. They could all feel pressure on their shoulders, as if things might escalate at any given moment. A week of constant battle and the Killen Empire is said to have advanced considerably into the territory of the Blue Wind Empire. From what Old Man Gerald said, things were not going too well for the Blue Wind Empire. On the same day, Gray got a piece of news that surprised him, and he was forced to call on the others. The Azure Empire has joined the Stellar and Killen Empire in attacking the Blue Wind Empire's troops, Gray reported to the others. What? The principal and the others exclaimed in disbelief. According to Void, the forces of the Blue Wind Empire at the borders close to the Killen Empire had started retreating the previous day. This was as a result of the Azure Empire suddenly attacking them. Gray went on to explain the situation to them. There was a misunderstanding between the Azure Empire and the Blue Wind Empire, and it caused a rift between the partnership of the two empires. According to Old Man Gerald, the Azure Empire demanded for the instructors, but the Blue Wind Empire said they didn't have them. Of course, the Azure Empire thought the Blue Wind Empire only said this because they wanted to be the ones to capture Gray and his friends. LSNTT this a little bit too risky for the Azure Empire. If they were to eliminate the Blue Wind Empire, then they would lose their only ally. The Killen and Stellar Empires would be able to easily take them down with a pincer attack. Blake said after Gray finished with his report. That's what everyone is saying. But the Azure Empire is acting strangely, as if possessed by something. Gray replied, this is getting a little complicated. Do you think it's a plan from both empires to confuse the others? The principal asked. It might be, but there have been some heavy casualties on the side of the Blue Wind Empire as a result of this. If this truly is a plan between the two empires, Then I feel sorry for those pawns who had to die unnecessary deaths. Gray replied. The fighters of the Blue Wind Empire were dying from being overwhelmed by the numbers. There was no way the Emperor of the Empire would be that selfish and evil. You're right, even the Killing Empire wouldn't carelessly fall for this. They will exercise caution as they advance, the principal said. The group was still in the middle of their conversation when Gray suddenly felt a surge of uneasiness. It was like a dark, eerie feeling overwhelmed him. Everyone sensed his sudden change and turned to him. Is everything all right? Klaus was the first to hassle. Gray, get out of there now. Some terrifying people are coming. Gray received a panicked message from Void at the same moment. What are you saying? He asked. Leave that place, go anywhere else. I'll find a way to come to you, Void urged. Gray didn't think about it anymore, and instantly tried to activate the teleportation array in the building. He had already placed all the stones needed just for a scenario like this. But his expression changed drastically when it didn't work. Chapter 609. It's not working, Gray muttered as he tried activating the array again. Just like the first time, it didn't work as well. Damn it, Gray exclaimed in frustration. Gray, what's going on? The principal was the first to notice something was wrong before Gray's sudden show of annoyance. The spatial array in the building is not working, Gray answered. Is that bad? The principal asked with a downcast expression. He didn't really know what Gray was speaking about, but before he reacted this way, it meant it was probably a bad thing. Someone must have thought of a way to stop us. Gray, as he tried to sense the area around them, he was unable to notice anyone, but he knew for a fact that someone or even some people were around the building. What do we do now? Klaus asked. We'll have to think of a way to stop whoever blocked this spatial array thingy Gray's speaking about. Once we're done, we'll leave this place since it's been compromised. The principal didn't take long before coming to a decision. I don't think things will be that easy. Since they could successfully stop us from teleporting out of here, it means they're not people we can take lightly. In fact, I'm at least 90% sure that they are from the Aurora continent, since they know of the space element. Gray replied after giving it some thought. The only people who knew of the space element, and ways to counter it, are from the Aurora continent. What do you mean by the space element? Blake asked. Gray didn't hide the existence of the space element from the trio any longer. After his explanation, the faces of the principal, Instructor Blake, and Delia were one of incredible shock. Wait, what? The principal as well as Instructor Blake and Delia asked in surprise. This was their first time hearing of the space element. I'll explain more about it later, but all you should know is that it's the only reason we were able to leave the Blue Wind Empire without any hassle. Naturally, I made another array here in case any unforeseen issues arise. Gray responded. Let's go out and see our visitors, the principal said to the others. They nodded before following the principal outside. As soon as the principal stepped outside, he sensed something that made him stop to look around. There's an eerie feeling around the entire town, he murmured while staring around. Something's wrong, Klaus said when he didn't hear the voice of any of the townspeople. Yes, I can't sense any living thing within a kilometer, the principal said with furrowed brows. This was a strange situation. Even though the war was happening thousands of kilometers away, there have been a few people who decided to leave early. When the others heard the news that the Killing Empire had started to enter the territory of the Blue Wine Empire, they felt reassured that the war wouldn't reach this town, so they decided to stay. But for some reason, no living person could be sensed by anyone from the group. Void, where are you? Gray asked. I'm on my way there. At least in 3 minutes' time or so I should be there, Void replied. Why did you urge me to leave? Gray tried to see if Void knew the people they were about to face. Unfortunately, no. I only had a terrible feeling. Also, I sensed an aura that I've sensed in the Aurora continent before. I just can't figure it out, Void replied. It's alright. The spatial zone here has been locked, so there's no way to use the space element here. I don't know how far it covers. Try to figure it out before coming, Gray said. Alright, Void replied. They were going against an enemy they knew nothing about. But this enemy seems to have a good technique to stop them from leaving. Now, all they could do was rely on the principal. What's this dark fog circulating around? Alice asked when she noticed the faint dark fog. Her question brought everyone's attention to the faint black fog around. If one didn't look properly, they wouldn't notice it. The principal studied it for only a second before his expression changed. Don't inhale it. It's extremely toxic. Luckily, Alice noticed it sooner. If we took in any more, then we would have died without even fighting against whoever our opponent is. Doesn't that mean all the townspeople are dead? Delia asked with a sad expression. Unfortunately, yes. Given the strength of their bodies, it's impossible for them to survive after inhaling this fog for a minute. The principal replied. We should get going, he added. Sir, Gray called on the principal to stop. Seeing that he had stopped, he continued, can we wait for a minute longer? Void's trying to see how far this restriction is. Knowing the limitations of this lockdown will at least give us a certain amount of precautionary measure. All right. Once he's done, we'll leave, the principal said. He still didn't know how Gray was communicating with Void, who was nowhere to be seen, but he trusted Gray. Although Gray tends to hide things from him, when he saw the expressions of Gray's friends when he was speaking of the space element, he could tell that they knew of it. When thinking of this, a thought suddenly came to his head. Since Gray knew so much about this space element, it only means that he has it as well. If he recalled properly, Gray already had 3 elements he knew of: lightning, earth, and the fire element he somehow managed to acquire back at the trial land. Now, with the addition of this space element, it meant Gray had 4 elements. That was insane. A few minutes later, hey, so I've got the exact range of the lockdown. It's around 2.5 kilometers. However, it's weaker once you go past the 1.5 kilometer mark. You can find a way to escape once you've gone past there, Void explained. Okay, we can go now, Gray said. Chapter 610. The group stepped out of the compound where they were staying, and they got the shock of their lives. Well, everyone except Gray, since he has had a somewhat similar experience. In front of them stood a multitude of people, but they all had black lines across their bodies, and were all pale. It was evident that there was no life in them. However, they were walking. What the hell is this? Klaus and Reynolds exclaimed simultaneously. Necromancers, Gray said as he stared at the walking dead. Necromancers? The principal asked. Yes, they're a group of people who can basically control dead people. This is a tricky situation, Gray explained. He had already told his friends about necromancers, so when they heard him say the word, they already knew what they could do. But the principal, Instructor Blake, and Instructor Delia were left stunned. Gray was introducing them to a world they never even knew existed. Almost every single time they speak to him, they are learning or hearing about something entirely new to them. So you mean after they killed all the townspeople, they started to control them? The principal asked. Yes, but we shouldn't have too much difficulty in dealing with them since the strength of the townspeople is only meager. Besides, their numbers can't really affect us, Gray elucidated. They don't seem to have noticed us, Blake said. Yeah, but it wouldn't be for long. The main thing now is to locate the necromancer behind this. I never thought they would be here as well. Looks like they managed to come here by accident, Gray muttered. And since they aren't the ones ruling the empires, it means they're not that powerful. At least not stronger than the Sage Plane elementalists around, he thought to himself. It's easy for him to assume this since he knew if a necromancer was here, and given how they seem to be active, they would naturally want to be well feared. The only thing that might stop them is the lack of strength on their part. Just after Gray finished replying to Instructor Blake's words, one of the seemingly walking dead noticed them. As soon as it did, it screeched loudly, which alerted the others as well. We've been noticed. Try to destroy them. They're already dead, so no need to hold back, Gray said. How could someone be this evil, going as far as killing all these innocent people? Alice said with clenched fists. Necromancers are hated generally, so I can understand how you feel. Just a reminder, they also rob graves as well. If there's a strong powerhouse who died, they would rob the grave, stealing the corpse, Gray added. That's going too far, Klaus said. Everyone present found the act disgusting. The walking dead close to them was the first to attack, charging at the group. Gray sent out a blue fireball that first sent the corpse flying into the other ones around it, before exploding on impact. A single attack destroyed at least 10 corpses at a time. Attack, we don't have time for any delays, Gray said. The others nodded as they attacked the corpses as well, destroying over 100 in a matter of seconds. Bang, boom. They continued attacking before the principal suddenly started to notice a change. Due to his strength, he was more sensitive. He could sense that after they started destroying the corpses, they seemed to be getting weaker. He threw an attack at one of the corpses in front of him to verify his thoughts, and after doing so, he studied it properly. He realized that the corpse was releasing a fragrance after it was destroyed. Don't destroy the corpse, Klaus, freeze them. The principal stopped the others from attacking. When the corpses are frozen, they don't realize the fragrance since they were trapped. Why? Reynolds asked. They're making us weak. Gray was the one who replied. The principal nodded when he heard Gray's words. He was a little shocked that Gray was able to also quickly notice this as well. Damn these people. How are they even doing it? Reynolds asked. Gray raised his shoulder, signifying he had no idea. Klaus and Instructor Delia took in a deep breath before placing both hands in front of them. They started to emit ice chills from their bodies that they sprayed in front of them. Within a few seconds, they had started to freeze all the corpses that were coming in their direction. But just when they were halfway through, they noticed the ice around the corpses started to explode. Of course, they wouldn't make it easy for us, Gray said. He tapped his feet on the ground, and as soon as Klaus or Instructor Delia froze any of the corpses, they would sink into the ground. The process was quick and in a synergy that nobody expected it. The duo freezing the corpses wanted to stop, but the principal stopped them, telling them it was the work of Gray. Before long, the front of the group was already almost empty, with only 8 corpses standing. No matter how they tried to freeze these corpses, the ice would melt even before it got close to them. These ones are the real problem. We were lucky we didn't get in a prolonged battle with those cannon fodders, else it would have been difficult for us to notice these guys. Gray said. What are they? The principal asked. Gray explained a little more about necromancers. Their abilities to make sure the strength of the corpse they were controlling was around the same stage, or even more powerful, than when the person died. Does that mean if these guys were Sage Plane Elementalists when they were dead, they would also be the same way after these guys start controlling them? Instructor Blake asked. I'm not too familiar with their ways, but that's how it should be. Well, that was what I was told, Gray explained. How about the real necromancers? How powerful are they? The principal asked. They are not that strong even when placed in a place like this. They would still be weaker than those in the same stage, Gray said. Chapter 611. Okay. The principal nodded. He still hasn't been able to get the actual strength of the corpses, since they haven't made any moves yet. Stay here, I'll try to see the extent of their strength. If you see things get difficult for me, run, the principal said before going forward. The others understood what he meant, so they didn't try to follow him. Rather, they even took a few steps back. Lightning could be seen moving across the principal's body. With a flash, he suddenly disappeared, appearing in the middle of the corpses. The moment he appeared, he attacked, sending out a powerful bolt of lightning that went in all directions. The impact of the attack forced the corpses back, but 3 of them only retreated 5 steps back, before keeping their balance once again. They raised their heads to look at the principal, and their blank eyes suddenly showed with brilliance. Each corpse's eyes glowed with a different color which represented their elements. One of them was red, the other blue, while the last was green. Swoosh! A windstorm suddenly rose up from nowhere, trying to throw the principal into the air. 3 Sage Plane Elementalists, but they're weaker than I am individually. 5 Peak Overlord Plane Elementalists that are still weaker than your average Overlord Plane Elementalist. Blake is the only one close to the peak of the Overlord plane. The others wouldn't be able to keep up with 4 on their own. The principal accessed their current situation, as he kept himself still on the ground, not allowing the wind to take him up. He could barely fight against the 3 Sage Plane corpses on his own, but other than Blake, there was no one else close to the peak of the Overlord plane. Delia was still in the mid stages of the Overlord plane, being in the 6th stage. If she and the others teamed up, they would be able to hold out against 2 at most. The remaining 2 would be able to cause them a serious problem. Buzz. The principal covered himself with lightning before disappearing from sight. He appeared in front of the group within a second, and he quickly told them his assessment of the situation. I'll hold all of them back, you guys should run. I have a good chance of escaping if I'm alone, he said. The others nodded. This was their only option anyway. Buzz. Bang. The principal attacked, but the attack was blocked by a fire attack from one of the corpses. That was a fire elementalist. The other two at the Sage Plane also attacked as well, blocking the escape route of the group. The 5 corpses at the Overlord Plane also came into the fray, attacking the group. The principal did his best to protect the others. Instructor Blake didn't stay idle, attacking one of the corpses at the peak of the Overlord Plane. Reynolds summoned his elemental warrior and attacked one of them as well. Klaus quickly went forward to help him out. Instructor Delia and Alice took on one of the corpses, but they were at a significant disadvantage since Alice was in the early stages of the Overlord Plane, still in the second stage. Gray looked at the situation, and there were 2 peak Overlord Plane corpses left. Guess it's time to test my experiments so far, he thought to himself. When he encountered that young necromancer at the ruins, he collected one of his corpses. He had been studying it for some time now, and although he hadn't really gotten a lot from it, there was a way he could make them dysfunctional for a few seconds or even a minute. Void was on his way back, and he could take care of them when he got there. All he had to do was to stall them for a few minutes. He could already sense Void. After taking a deep breath, he took a step forward, and black tendrils started to spread from his feet, going towards the corpses. When they got close, they latched onto the 2 that wanted to attack him, and the moment they touched them, the corpses shrieked loudly as if in pain. Gray also stopped immediately before holding onto his head. He felt a slight headache from what just happened. He turned to look at the west. Void, there's someone. He gave Void the exact location of the person he just sensed when he tried to mess up with the control of the corpse. Never in his wildest dreams did he think he would be able to get the location of the person controlling the corpse if he did it. When he was trying the experiment, he was only working with an ownerless corpse. All he did was mess with the black strings he found inside the corpse, somewhere outside the town. What just happened? A shrill voice muttered. A cloaked figure could be seen hiding in the trees. What? Another cloaked figure asked. Someone just used the corpse puppet to find my location, the first cloaked figure explained. A necromancer? The other one asked. No, it's a young boy. I can sense something strange about him. He not only used it to find my whereabouts, but he also cut off my connection with them. The cloaked figure said, he must be one of us. There's no way someone can just know how to cut off connections from puppets without going through proper training. The other figure said, I believe so too. We should go closer before they destroy my tools. It took me years to groom them to their current state, and I can't afford to lose them. The cloaked figure said, the reason they hadn't been able to sense the mark on Gray's body was due to the distance. Since it could only be sensed from a 1-kilometer radius, they didn't know. They were around 1.5 kilometers away from the town. By the time they got within the 1-kilometer radius, their expressions changed and they looked at each other. Can you sense it as well? The first cloaked figure asked. Yes, but how come it's so faint? The other one asked. Chapter 612. That's because you're going to die soon. A small, childlike voice came from behind the duo. Huh? Who said that? The cloaked man Gray disconnected from the corpse was shocked. Necromancers have one of the best perceptions there is, so it was almost impossible for someone to sneak up on them. Yet, they could hear a voice, and it was that of a child as well. It's me, your death, Void replied. Before the duo even saw him, he attacked. Boom. He was already a peak rank 5 magical beast, and even amongst others in the same stage, he was well above them. These necromancers who were weaker than an ordinary 8th stage Overlord Plane elementalist stood no chance against him. The attack sent the duo flying, crashing into the tree they stood on. They coughed out a mouthful of blood before exchanging glances. After the attack, they saw who attacked them. A small black cat. You must be connected to that kid. He's the only one who knows where I'm located, the cloaked man said. Blah blah blah, just die already. Void mocked before attacking once again. Swoosh, bang. The duo used a combined effort to block the attack, but it still pushed them back. Without wasting any time, a coffin soon appeared in front of each of them, and a figure walked out. Unlike the rest ones, this corpse had no flesh, it was all bones. But the other coffin was a little more interesting. Instead of a human walking out, a magical beast was what actually walked out, and it was at the peak of the Overlord Plane. Damn, I never knew you guys did it to magical beasts as well. You have desecrated my kind, and it will not end well for you, Void said coldly before attacking. This time, he wasn't holding anything back. Seeing a magical beast being controlled after its death infuriated him. The dead beast was also from the cat family, a large blue tiger that stood over 2 meters tall. Bang, boom. The battle soon intensified with the addition of the skeleton and the magical beast. The 2 necromancers stood behind them, making sure to protect themselves from Void, who seemed hellbent on killing them in the most brutal way, especially the one who was controlling the magical beast's corpse. Contact the others, tell them we have a problem. The cloaked man Gray interrupted his control of the corpse, said to the other one. All right. The man nodded before taking out an item from his storage ring. Back in the town, after Gray managed to sever the connection, he was still a little shocked it worked. But since it had already worked out, there was no use in thinking about it. He quickly moved to the one Alice and instructed Delia were fighting against. Just like before, as soon as his black tendrils wrapped themselves around the corpses, they shrieked loudly before they stopped moving. I have a way to stop them, but it will be only for a while. However, I don't know if I can do the same for those in the Sage Plane. Gray told the others about his recent discovery. Just do it, so you guys can escape, the principal said. Gray nodded before going after the one that was with Klaus and Reynolds. When he was done with that, he faced the one that was with Instructor Blake. At the time he was done, the first 2 he severed their connections were starting to regain themselves again. He hurriedly rushed towards them and did the same thing. Try to destroy them, he said to the others. Boom. Way ahead of you, Klaus said after he attacked. His attack soon died down, and nothing happened to the corpse, not even a scratch. What's going on? He asked, stunned. I don't know, Gray replied while trying to once again stop the other corpses from being controlled. They attacked the motionless corpses once again, but they were unable to damage them. Fine, that's how you want to play, huh? Gray said before bringing out one of the storage rings in his possession and keeping all 5 corpses inside. Since he couldn't destroy them, he would hide them in a storage ring. Leave, the principal said after he pushed back one of the Sage Plane corpses. Okay, so, the group nodded. But just as they were about to leave, where do you think you're going to? A shrill voice asked, accompanied by a dark fog that raced towards Gray. Oh no, everyone's heart sank. Gray was at the forefront of the group, and before any of them could react, this black fog was already in front of him. Gray, seeing something appearing in front of him out of nowhere, hastily rose a firewall in front of him to block whatever was coming his way. The black fog went past the firewall before a dried hand was stretched out from it, trying to drag Gray inside. Gray's instincts kicked in, thanks to his heightened senses and physical speed. After consuming the dragon's blood essence, he dodged the hand. What shocked everyone was that he not only dodged it, but he grabbed onto it with both hands and pulled whoever or whatever was inside. With a powerful yell, he was able to yank the figure out of the black fog. Bam! He slammed the figure to the ground repeatedly, before letting go. Such a powerful physique, you would be a 1 in a million puppet, once I'm done refining you. The figure stood up as if nothing happened before saying. The figure was standing around 5'5" and was covered in a large black cloak. What are you doing here? Gray asked coldly. I can say the same for you. You clearly look like a genius, so you will be well taken care of in one of those big factions. But to come across someone like you here, it's truly a blessing to me, the figure said, chuckling lightly. Now that the figure was out of the fog, the group could distinguish the figure's voice, and it seemed to be that of a female. Chapter 613. Let us leave and I'll act like I never saw you, Gray threatened. He was hoping to use the fear of the factions in the Aurora continent to scare this person away. Of course, he wasn't too hopeful it would work out, but he wanted to try. Heh. Do you think we're scared of those stupid factions? Even in the Middle Continent, we still act as we want, and there's nothing they can do to us, the figure said. Them, Gray said. What? The figure asked in confusion. There's nothing they can do to them. The likes of you can't really dare to act wildly in the presence of the top factions. You'll be killed in the blink of an eye. Gray corrected the figure. Klaus and Reynolds, who were by the side, understood that Gray was belittling the figure and burst out laughing. Even in a situation like this, it was never a bad time to get a good laugh. The figure started to shake visibly from anger. It was clear to see that Gray's words triggered a bad memory. What do you know? I'll kill you here and now, the figure said before attacking Gray with a powerful attack. The figure didn't even call out a corpse, which came as a shock to Gray. Instructor Blake rushed in front of Gray to defend him from the attack. Be careful, this is unlike them. They never physically attack unless they are forced to, or have a hidden motive, Gray warned. Instructor Blake nodded, keeping his distance as he attacked the figure. Buzz, crackle, boom. Lightning danced across the entire town, with two great lightning users attacking at the same time without any restraints. It was understandable how the situation in the town would be. The figure continued attacking, and to Gray's surprise, this person was stronger not only with their elemental attacks, but with physical attacks as well. No wonder she wasn't affected when I slammed her into the ground, he said to himself, as he watched the battle unfold. The principal was still entangled with the three Sage Plane corpses. Even though he had been able to push them back one at a time, they were able to quickly get back together to stop him from moving. Void, how are things over there? Gray asked. He would feel a lot safer if Void was present here. Can you believe these bastards also do these things to my kind as well? I'll be done with them soon, Void replied, still annoyed by what he saw. Be fast with it, there's still more hiding around. But I don't think we can deal with them now. Escaping should be our top priority, Gray said. Don't worry, they'll get dead soon, Void said. Gray looked at the chaotic situation in front of him before shaking his head. Must people always find ways to cause conflict? Can't we just live in peace? I'm sure you know the answer to that question, Alice said. Gray sighed before looking down. He knew what Alice meant. Even though things were like this, he still wanted to live a peaceful life, but people kept on interfering with it. The only way I can have what I want is to be the strongest. So strong that they wouldn't want to speak about me, even when I'm not there, he concluded in his heart. Boom, bang. The figure managed to successfully send Instructor Blake flying, but before she could capitalize on it, Instructor Blake attacked as well, forcing her to retreat. You all will make nice puppets. Hehe, she cackled evilly as she attacked once again. Gray looked at the situation, and the thought of using the fusion state came to his mind, but he quickly tossed it aside. They still didn't know what was in the shadows, so showing all their cards now will be dangerous for them. I'll use that to assist the instructor, he said to himself. Opening his palm, 3 different elemental essences started to gather on top of it. He hadn't used the Chaos Orb in a while now, and since he didn't want to show the principal and the instructors all the elements he could control, he only used 3. It will not be as powerful as the one with all 7 elements in his control, but its power shouldn't be too bad. Instructor Delia was the first to notice Gray's movements, followed by his friends. This was also their first time seeing him use it, so they looked at it with curiosity. They could all feel the power that was gathering inside the orb forming above Gray's palm. While making it, Gray had been searching for an opportunity to contact Instructor Blake, so he wouldn't be caught in the attack. Even though it wouldn't kill him, it would still hurt a little. The energy stirring on top of his hand naturally drew the attention of everyone in the place. Even the principal turned to look at it. How many secrets does this kid have? The principal thought to himself. When Instructor Blake saw this, he knew full well what Gray's plan was. He soon started to push the figure in a certain direction. Since he mainly used long range, he kept a considerable distance from her. Gray was already fully prepared for the attack, swiftly throwing it in the direction Instructor Blake was pushing the figure. Boom. A white light spread out in all directions, causing a loud explosion that even reached where Gray and his friends were standing. The group hastily retreated. The principal managed to push one of the corpses inside the range of the blast while also retreating. Instructor Blake was beside Instructor Delia, protecting her from the impact of the blast. Since when could you do that? Klaus asked. Well, it's been a while now, Gray replied sincerely. You never cease to amaze me. Instructor Blake said. He's my friend, what do you expect? Klaus said proudly. Instructor Blake smacked the back of Klaus's head lightly. Chapter 614. Is she dead? Reynolds asked since the light from the explosion still hadn't died down. Not exactly, but it should at least cause her some damage. Instructor Blake replied. He turned to Gray. Can you do that again? Gray nodded before opening his palm to show the one he was already preparing. Good, we'll work together to take her out. If there's a way you can make it more powerful, please do, Instructor Blake added. Just as he finished his words, he almost choked on his saliva when a 4th elemental essence started to circulate with the other 3. The orb Gray was currently preparing was still in its early stages, but Instructor Blake could already see the significant increase in its power. Is he still human? Instructor Blake asked internally. He already guessed Gray had 4 elements, but seeing it with his eyes was still a little hard to take in. A multi-elementalist with 3 elements is already regarded as someone special, and now there's Gray who had 4. The shocking part of Gray's story was that when they did the test on him, only 2 elements came up. This meant that he somehow managed to gain control of 2 more elements. No wonder he advanced so quickly. But the essence needed for each improvement in a stage must be tremendous, Instructor Blake thought internally. The light soon died down, and the figure of the lady came to view. Her black cloak was destroyed by the blast, and some slight injuries could be seen on her arms. But the strange thing was that there was no blood coming out of it. Her body was dried up, just like a corpse, and her hair had completely turned white. Her fingernails were extremely long, her teeth were black, and her eye sockets were empty. Now, that's disturbing, Klaus remarked. It truly is. Gray and the others nodded. You little brat, once I'm done with him, you're next. The old lady screamed angrily. Let's go, keep your distance, and inform me just before it's ready, Instructor Blake said to Gray as he flew in the direction of the old lady. Gray nodded, before taking flight as well. From the last time, he noticed he could control the Chaos Orb now, compared to the previous times where it would almost explode in his face if he tried to keep it with him for long. Now, he could hold onto it for a few seconds, even up to a minute if he wished to. This would give him considerable time to throw it at the right spot. Also, making the Chaos Orb was easier now. It only took at most 30 seconds, and he was done with it. What he planned to do this time was to reduce the size of the orb, compressing it to the smallest possible size. The smaller it is, the greater the power it holds. He also took note of how it got more difficult as he tried to compress it. By the time Instructor Blake engaged with the old lady, he was already prepared. Presently, the orb was slightly smaller than a table tennis ball. Instructor Blake exchanged a few moves with the lady, and when he was pushed back, Gray came in front of him and sent the orb towards the lady, who just gave chase after Instructor Blake. The old lady, seeing the small orb coming in her direction, hastily stopped, before trying to retreat. Unfortunately, burst. Gray muttered slightly as he retreated with Instructor Blake. Boom. An explosion, louder than the first one, occurred. The principal, who had once again started to face 3 Sage Plane corpses, pushed one inside the range of the explosion. The first one he pushed inside came out with some small damage. Since this explosion was larger, and he made sure to send this one towards the core of it, then it would take stronger damage compared to the first one. After sending one of the corpses into the explosion, the pressure on the principal reduced significantly, and he quickly tried to use this period to deal some real damage to the 2 fighting against him. In the woods, Void was still fighting against the 2 necromancers. He had defeated the corpses they brought out the first time, but after that, they had brought out 2 more. One of them mainly used magical beast corpses, while the other used human corpses. The more beast corpses Void saw, the more he felt annoyed by the man. Bang! He blasted the corpses apart, before charging at the duo. Before they brought out another corpse, he attacked, easily ripping their cloaks apart while greatly dealing them some damage. The duo retreated after the attack. However, it was already too late for them. Since Void had managed to get close to them, their fate was already decided. Bam! They crashed into a tree, destroying it. Void appeared above them before smashing them into the ground. Their wrinkled bodies were covered in injuries and blood coming out from different sides. What are you? One of the men asked while staring at Void in terror. Just die already. Void blasted a powerful lightning attack at the duo who were on the ground. They screamed in pain before their screams died down. After the lightning attack died down, Void's expression changed and he approached the corpses. A look of confusion appeared on his face. He quickly left the place, heading in Gray's direction. He could see the large light from Gray's Chaos Orb explosion. These people are just freaks, he thought. Back in the town, the explosion soon died down, and the old lady soon came into view. Her body was destroyed, with her left hand missing. One more should be able to do it, Instructor Blake said to Gray. The Sage Plane corpse in the explosion managed to escape with a minimal amount of damage. It charged toward the principal once again, joining the other two who were being oppressed by the principal. Heh, you really are something, the old lady said. Gray was already preparing another chaos orb. Unlike the fusion state, there wasn't a limit to how many times he could use this technique. Chapter 615. Let's go. Instructor Blake and Gray took to the sky, rushing towards the old lady. You two think you can kill me? Impossible. The old lady laughed before spreading out her single hand. A black fog spread out from her body, enveloping her as she tried to flee. Gray was already done with the Chaos Orb. With help from Instructor Blake, he appeared in front of the lady, in the direction she was escaping to. He tossed the orb in her direction before retreating quickly. The reason he took this risk was that Void was coming from this direction as well. So in case of anything, he could use his help. The space element was still on lockdown in this area, so he wasn't at his fastest any longer. The Chaos Orb entered the black fog and seemed to vanish. Gray was a little surprised by what happened, but the black fog was soon sucked in by a powerful force, followed by a terrifying explosion. Boom. This time, the old lady was right beside the orb when it exploded, so she took the full brunt of it. Her enraged and pitiful shriek could be heard all across the town. The small delay before the explosion gave Gray the chance to retreat to a safe distance. His friends just stared at him in shock, awed by the power of the Chaos Orb. Damn it, he's amazing, Klaus said excitedly. Yeah, I can't wait for us to go to this new continent, Reynolds said. Me too, Alice agreed with the two on a rare occasion. She rarely agreed with them on anything, since well, they were nut jobs, and rarely said anything good. Instructor Delia was amazed by Gray's prowess. She still found it hard to believe that this was the same person that came to the academy 3 years late compared to those his age. The same person Chris pranked when he just arrived. How time flies, she muttered with a shake of her head. From what she could see, she knew very well that she stood no chance against him. Just this attack alone is enough to threaten her existence. Gray has done it 3 times now, which meant he could probably still do it a 4th time. She wasn't even as fast as he was, so it was almost impossible for her to dodge the attack. In the space of only 3 years plus, a student who hadn't even started cultivating has grown stronger than an instructor, a top-tier instructor for that matter who was regarded as a genius. It was unbelievable. If Gray were to use this attack on Instructor Blake, it was unknown who would come out on top. But one thing is for sure, this attack was dangerous to anyone who was in the Overlord plane. It might not kill them, but it will surely cause them some harm. The light from the explosion died down, and a figure could be seen falling straight to the ground. Instructor Blake and Gray hurried over to see the situation of the lady, and their expressions changed when they got there. The frontal part of her body was destroyed, and what looked like a human could be seen inside all squeezed up. The tiny human opened her eyes, and it was green, but felt with bloodlust. Small injuries could be seen on the side of the body. What is that? Instructor Blake asked in shock. I don't know. Gray shook his head. This was the first time he was seeing something like this, and he couldn't hide his shock. My shell, you morons destroyed my precious shell. The small person inside the old lady screamed at Gray and Instructor Blake in agony. The voice was exactly the same as that of the old lady. Shell. Instructor Blake and Gray exchanged glances, and they quickly understood what was going on. This small person inside the old lady was the real person. The old lady was probably a corpse that they took control of. But how was this possible, and how the hell could they stay inside someone comfortably? Multiple questions ran through the head of Gray and Instructor Blake, but their main priority now was to kill the lady. They don't want to know how they managed to achieve this feat of theirs. A lightning bolt shot towards the small figure, but the lady disappeared, drilling into the ground as quickly as she could. Gray, seeing this, rushed to the ground, stomping his foot on the ground. The ground shook, but nothing came out. She escaped, he said with a downcast look. It's okay, we should leave, Instructor Blake said. What of the principal? Gray asked. He'll escape once we're not here, Instructor Blake said. Okay, Gray nodded. He turned to look at Klaus before saying, Klaus, give the principal your communication device, so he can track us easily. Good idea. Klaus smiled before throwing his communication device at his father. He quickly told him how to make use of it. Void soon caught up with them. Were you able to kill them? Gray asked telepathically. No, there's a small person inside their bodies, Void replied. I tried stopping the one we fought here from escaping. But even with the help of the earth element, she still escaped. Gray told him about their ordeal. These guys are a bunch of freaks. I personally don't want to see them again, Void said. Me too, but we'll see them again for sure, Gray said before glancing at Instructor Blake and Delia. Do you think? Yes, they're tracking us through them. I've not been able to sense anything on them yet, but I'm certain of it. How do you think they managed to lock the space around here without our knowledge, and even found us so easily? Gray said. When he heard of the instructor's escape, he believed something was wrong, and it looked like his assumption was correct. The instructors were being tracked, but they had no idea of it. Chapter 616. The group bid farewell to the principal, who was still in the middle of fighting, before leaving the area. On their way, Gray told them about his hypothesis. If what you say is correct, then leaving teacher's side wouldn't be the best option, Instructor Blake said. The principal was the only one in the sage plane amongst the group. If they were to escape without him, it would mean that they would fall into the hands of these people, since they could track them. There's also the possibility of them having a hidden sage plane corpse lying in wait. A single one could easily wipe out the team. Gray thought about it, and couldn't refute Instructor Blake's words. So what do we do now? Return to father? Klaus asked. We haven't gone far from him, so going back wouldn't be an issue, Instructor Blake replied. They turned to head back, but the sky above them suddenly went dark, and a skeletal hand came out from the sky, heading towards the group as they tried escaping. What the hell? Reynolds exclaimed in fright. He wasn't the only one horrified by what was coming in their direction. Every single person there was shaken. Move, now, Instructor Blake yelled while dragging Delia with him. Gray snapped out of his shock and followed behind them. Klaus, Reynolds, Alice, and Void went after him. Unfortunately, after getting to a certain stage, a black veil appeared, seemingly blocking them from going through. I can't get through, Instructor Blake said after trying to destroy it with his lightning blade. Gray brought out his high-grade elemental weapon and tried using it to slash the veil, after infusing all 7 elements in. Clank. The sword bounced off the veil, and Gray almost lost his grip. This is bad. Gray's expression changed. The hand was getting closer to the group as they tried to think of a way to break through it. This is a domain. According to what I know, humans shouldn't be able to activate their domain until they at least get to the sage plane. And those who do at the sage plane are regarded as geniuses among geniuses, Void explained to Gray telepathically. A domain. A confused expression appeared on Gray's face. But before Void could answer, is there a way you can get us out of here? We'll speak about this later. I should be able to if I activate mine, Void answered with uncertainty. Just like Gray, he couldn't access his space element properly, and that's the only element he had awakened his domain. The only reason he's attempting this is that they were not at the center of the lockdown, so the spatial lock here wasn't too powerful. With Void in the middle, a powerful energy radiated out. Everyone felt the energy, but there was no change in their situation. Void, Gray called out. I'm coming. This is me literally straining myself, Void said with difficulty. The group stayed close to the edge of the veil, resting their bodies on it, as if the hand wouldn't be able to get them if they were there. Void, Gray called out again. Void had his eyes shut, not saying anything. The hand was only about 10 meters away from them. If they tried to move in another direction, the hand would get to them before they got there. 8 meters, 6 meters, 4 meters. Just when the hand was within inches of the group, almost already touching Instructor Blake's head, they fell through the veil, blocking them, all falling to the ground with hearts pounding. What just happened? Klaus asked as he saw the hand grabbing the ground where they were previously standing. Void happened, we should get going, Gray answered before picking up Void. He could see that doing this put a lot of strain on Void. Luckily, he was conscious, so it meant he wasn't really hurt. Somewhere in the woods. How did they escape from that? A figure dressed in a black cloak with a croaky voice asked angrily after smashing a tree to smithereens. I don't know. Another person dressed in a black cloak answered. I thought there was no one that could use domains, and their sage plane expert was stuck with fighting your puppets. The first speaker said. There's a strange cat with them, a voice said from the ground. The ground shook and a small black head stuck out from it. It looked exactly like a human, only the eyes were bigger, and teeth were sharp. A cat. What does a cat have to do with this? The first person said. It almost killed us even with a higher number. The figure said before coming out from the ground. It was around 1 meter in height, and its entire body was black. Its ears were longer than that of a human, and the tips were pointed. We came here to hide and regain our strength. Eating these kids will be beneficial to us. Send out the puppets. We cannot let them escape. The first voice said. Yes, Supreme One. The last figure in the group nodded before disappearing from the woods. At the time this person was leaving, a third figure came out from the ground. But compared to the first two, it had injuries all around its body, with blue blood dripping from the side. What happened to you? The person regarded as the Supreme One asked. I was almost killed by the kid who disconnected our connection with the puppets. The figure said. What? The Supreme One asked in shock. The figure went on to tell him of how Gray tried to force her out from the ground with the earth element. She sustained injuries even though she escaped successfully. We'll get him soon. I wonder how he managed to achieve that. The Supreme One said thoughtfully. Also, there's a mark on him. The lady Gray fought against told them about his prowess and that of the principal and instructor Blake. This is a nice harvest. You'll get the lightning user once we get them. The Supreme One said. Chapter 617. Gray and his friends hurried back in the direction of the town. He had tried to locate whatever they used in tracking instructor Blake and Delia after their last encounter, but it was unsuccessful. The duo tried themselves, but they were unsuccessful as well. Even Void, Klaus, Reynolds, and Alice also tried to see if they could find it, but none of them succeeded. Gray took out the communication device to try and see if the principal had escaped from the 3 Sage Plane puppets he was fighting against. It hasn't even been up to 5 minutes since you left. They've not given me the chance yet. But I'm no longer within the town's premises. The principal told him his current whereabouts, after Gray told him about their speculation and what they just encountered. Sir, I think the best thing to do now is to alert the troops fighting. If you want to, you can make a big attack that will surely attract the attention of those in the camp, Gray said. Their current situation is bad. If there were to be other Sage Plane corpses, then they were toast. Even someone as powerful as the principal can't go against 5 corpses on his own, let alone more than 5. It has not gotten to that yet. We still haven't verified if they have more. But either way, ending up with the Empire wouldn't be good for any of us, the principal said. We have the space element as a last resort to escape, and none of them know about Void's abilities, giving us 2 escape cards. But just as you said, we'll wait to see if they have more Sage Plane corpses, Gray responded. After ending the conversation with the principal, he told the others of what they spoke about, and his plans to alert the Empire if things went wrong. With Void's help, we should be able to escape from the Empire. Since they don't know about the space element, our options are risky. Hopefully, we're lucky, and they don't have any more Sage Plane corpses. Klaus said. They couldn't escape on their own, especially given what they just encountered. Void couldn't continuously help them, since the pressure on him would be too much. However, if they happened to be caught by the Empire, Void could easily come in and sneak them out of the place. Any way they look at it, the latter plan seemed safer. Well, if they weren't killed immediately, that is. They rushed towards the area the principal was fighting, but they didn't get too close, keeping a good distance. Boom, bang. They could hear the sounds of the explosions from the principal's attacks. They hid somewhere safe, with Void keeping track of what was happening in the area. Gray also made a quick array around where they were hiding to make sure if anything came into that area, he would be alerted. It didn't take long before his expression changed. Something's coming, Void messaged him telepathically. Yeah, I've sensed it, Gray replied. His expression already told the others of their current situation, and they all prepared themselves for what was coming. If it's in the Overlord plane, then they still had a chance, but anything in the Sage plane, then they would turn around and run. Gray placed some trap arrays that would at least slow down whatever it was. He also held the communication device in his hand, so that he could tell the principal to find a way to alert the Empire of their current location. A loud, eerie screech came from outside the building they were hiding, indicating it was time to leave. Sir, a Sage Plane corpse is here. Alert the Empire, Gray said as they ran for it. They all came out of the building, rushing into the sky. Their direction, where the troops from the Killing Empire were camped. The war was still ongoing, and it had gotten to the point where the strongest fighters from all sides were coming out. If Gray and his friends were to suddenly appear in any of the camps, it would cause an uproar, throwing the battle in a different direction. Every single empire will rush towards them, trying to capture them. Boom! A loud, colorful explosion rang out behind them as they quickly escaped. It was from the traps Gray set up. After getting the hang of the Chaos Orb, he used an array formation to contain it in a trap array. This way, once triggered, it would release the pent-up energy it had been storing. Unlike the previous ones, this Chaos Orb was made from 7 different elements, so the strength was unimaginable. Even the principal, who was a good distance away, was dumbstruck by it. What's the use of me even trying to alert the Empire when he already can? The principal asked himself in disbelief. The strength of that explosion was insane. He couldn't believe it was made by someone who was still in the 5th stage of the Overlord plane. It could very well rival an attack from a peak Overlord plane elementalist. And not any peak Overlord plane elementalist, but a genius. At the borders of the Killen and Blue Wind Empire, the light from Gray's attack caught the attention of the people on the battlefield, and those in the Killen Empire camp that was at the back. Seeing that it was coming from the Killen Empire's side, the guards at the camp hurried to inform their superiors who were inside the tent. An explosion from a side, a young handsome youth asked. Looking closely, it was a face Blake Delia and the principal was familiar with. It was none other than the Crown Prince of the Killen Empire, Jason Gale. Yes, Your Highness. The guard bowed as he reported. Come, let's go check it out. Jason walked out of the tent accompanied by 2 old men. After coming out, they took to flight, rushing in the direction of the light. Chapter 618. Bang! Gray and Instructor Blake were sent flying. Reynolds's elemental warrior was destroyed by a single attack from the Sage Plane Corpse. Alice, Klaus Reynolds, and Instructor Delia continued flying as Gray, and Instructor Blake tried to hold back the corpse. The trap array Gray set up was already exhausted, but it was unable to do any significant damage to the corpse. Other than slowing it down for a few seconds, it didn't amount to much. This goes to show the strength difference between an Overlord plane elementalist and a Sage plane elementalist. Even though the corpse wasn't at the original strength of the person while alive, it was still too much for the group who was still in the Overlord plane. Get back, I'll try to stop it. You are its target. Instructor Blake pushed Gray back after standing up from where they crashed. You don't need to take the risk alone. My previous attack should be enough to alert the troops of the Empire at the border. Hopefully, they get here soon. Gray refused to leave. Void appeared on his shoulder, sending out an attack toward the corpse. The corpse punched out, destroying Void's attack. Snow soon started to fall around the area where they were standing. Before long, the snow started to take the shape of humans, just like a snowman. The strength of each snowman was around the early stages of the Overlord plane, but there were over 20 that appeared. Buzz. Lightning danced across Gray and Instructor Blake's body. On Gray's body, there was red lightning, while Instructor Blake had the regular silver-colored lightning. Surprise appeared on Instructor Blake's face, as well as that of Gray's friends. Since they all knew he previously had regular silver lightning, Gray and Instructor Blake charged into the group of snowmen, quickly destroying them with their power lightning attacks. Gray made 3 inscriptions as well, using them to help Void distract the corpse that was trying to get close to them. Gray had been impressed with Void's performance so far against the Sage Plane Corpse. Even though he didn't have the upper hand, he had been dodging most of its attacks, while making sure to pester it. The inscriptions made it almost impossible for the corpse to free itself from the disturbance. The corpse raised its hand, and ice shards appeared in the sky, covering a range of around 500 meters radius. Luckily, Instructor Delia and the others were not in this area. Gray turned to look at Instructor Blake, and the lightning around their bodies flared up. Buzz. Bang. Boom. They started attacking wildly, especially Gray, as soon as the ice shards started to fall in their direction. Given the large number of the ice shards, it was impossible for Instructor Blake to dodge them. Gray was a little lucky thanks to his space element. Since they've managed to leave the area where the spatial lockdown was done, he had free access to the space element now. Nevertheless, the duo was still hit by a few of the ice shards. Void was the only one in the area that wasn't affected by the ice shards. Whenever the ice shards went close to him, they would vanish before appearing behind the corpse, attacking it. When he was in the trial land with Gray, he used the skill as well. According to what he told Gray, it was an innate skill that would transport any attack directed at him in another direction. He rarely used this skill since it took some effort to use. It was just like when using a domain. It might be flashy and cool, but the consumption was insane. The corpse wasn't affected by the ice shards that were striking it. Since they were its attacks, all it did was to dissolve them before they even touched him. He still had complete control and connection with each ice shard. Outside the battleground, where Klaus and the others were standing. Damn, since when did Gray have red lightning? Klaus asked. Red lightning? Man, I'm jealous. Reynolds exclaimed. Unknown to him, Gray acquired the ability to use red lightning during their expedition to the Chimera Forest, when he wanted the lightning tree. Wasn't his lightning silver? Alice asked dumbstruck. Well, he had been using silver lightning all these while. Guess he had been hiding it. Klaus said. Wait, isn't it only possible to have just one color of lightning? Instructor Delia couldn't hold herself back from asking. Well, that's how it's supposed to be, but with him, nothing is impossible, Klaus remarked. Reynolds and Alice nodded in agreement to Klaus's words. They knew all too well what he meant. Others might not know, but they knew of his freakish abilities. As if having a second color of lightning was something major compared to being able to comprehend another element, or even upgrading the elemental grade. So long Gray doesn't die young, then he will surely become the most powerful individual alive. And it wasn't even a contest with anyone. They held Gray in high regard, and to be honest, they didn't feel anything other than joy in being friends with someone who is as freakish as he was. They all knew that it was all thanks to the pressure they felt from being left behind that pushed them to grow this fast. Instructor Delia stared at the friends, almost wishing she had someone like Gray as a friend. Not just that, but the friendship between the four of them was something she rarely saw. If it were others, they would feel envy when one of them was performing so well compared to the others. But in their case, they felt nothing but joy for their friend. She could also tell that they all believed in each other unconditionally. If Gray, Klaus, Alice, or even Reynolds told the group to follow him into hell, the others wouldn't even ask the reason and would follow him. This is what true friendship is, she thought. Chapter 619. Boom. Bang. Instructor Blake crashed into a tree, but before the corpse could get to him, Gray and Void appeared in front of it and attacked, forcing it to block their attacks. How long do you think we can hold out? Instructor Blake couldn't help but ask. I have no idea, but it shouldn't be for long, Gray replied. For the first time in Instructor Blake's life, he was actually praying he got captured by an enemy. At least being held captive by the Empire meant that he would still be alive from how this thing was attacking. It looked like it wanted to kill him. Instructor Blake couldn't help but sigh as he got up from the tree. After dusting himself clean, he rushed into battle once again. By the time he joined them, Gray had already been sent flying by the corpse, while Void disappeared, appearing in another location to dodge the attack of the corpse. I really need to work on how fast I can teleport, Gray thought, while joining the battle once again. Since the time of the explosion, it has been almost 5 minutes. But it felt like a lifetime already, since the corpse was well above them in terms of strength. They hadn't even been able to put a scratch on its body, while Gray and Instructor Blake had injuries all over their bodies. Reynolds's elemental warrior didn't even last up to a minute before it was extinguished. Since Reynolds wasn't the one who called it back, it was impossible to summon it in such a short time. It will take around a day or so before he could summon it again. The only reason it was this early was that he was a high-grade summoner. Swoosh. Bam. Gray's inscription was destroyed by the corpse in the most overbearing way possible. It literally stretched out its hand, and when it closed its palm, the inscription shattered. This was the first time Gray's inscriptions were destroyed in such a fashion, and he didn't know if he should be impressed or worried by the strength of the corpse. A Sage Plane Elementalist is truly on a league of their own, compared to Overlord Plane Elementalists, Gray thought with a shake of his head as he made another inscription. Instructor Blake tried engaging in close combat with the corpse, and it didn't take up to 2 moves before he was sent flying. Even with Void's superior abilities with the space element, just like Gray, he had been sent flying on multiple occasions by the corpse. The group could literally be said to be fighting a losing battle. Their only hope was that the Empire's troops arrived before they were killed. They had tried retreating while the battle was on. Well, it's not on purpose since it was the corpse sending them flying in that direction, but it was still something. With them going closer to the borders and the troops coming in their direction, it was only a matter of time. Gray estimated it would take an Overlord plane elementalist at most 8 minutes for them to cross the distance from the border to where they were located, if they flew at top speed. Not too far from where Gray and Instructor Blake were fighting. While Gray, Void, and Instructor Blake were busy fighting against a single Sage Plane corpse, things weren't any better with the Principal. The 3 corpses didn't feel pain like humans, and nor do they get exhausted. He had been fighting them for over 10 minutes now, and he had expended a lot of energy and effort, yet he still hadn't been able to take one of them out. Whenever he gets close to taking one out of the picture, another one will come over, helping it. The synergy between the corpses was on another level. The Principal felt only a few groups of people would be able to perform with the same level of cooperation. Boom, bang. The Principal was pushed back by a combined attack from all 3 corpses. Just when he was about to attack, he turned to look in the direction of the borders, where the war was taking place. Finally, he heaved a sigh of relief. Staying close to the borders turned out to be a blessing in disguise. He thought it might have been very dangerous staying in this place, since it was so close to the borders. But who would have thought that the same people they were running away from would turn out to be their helpers later on? On Gray's side of the battle, Instructor Blake and Void were the first to take note of the people from the borders. It didn't take long before Gray and the others noticed them as well. Oh, finally. Gray almost collapsed on the ground when he noticed them. He even almost stopped fighting right there and then. Within a few seconds, 3 figures appeared in front of them. Delia and Blake noticed the one standing in the middle. Jason, good thing you're here, go and fight, Blake said before dashing in Jason's direction. Jason and the Sage Plane experts by his side were dumbfounded by what they were seeing. They could see that they were fighting against a Sage Plane elementalist, but what surprised them was that the person they were fighting against didn't seem to be alive. Blake, what's going on? Jason asked with a curious expression. We'll explain later, kill that thing first. Well, if you can, Blake said. Take it down. Jason ordered the 2 men by his side. The 2 men paused, looking at Gray and Blake suspiciously. Don't worry, they won't do anything to me, Jason assured. He wasn't a weak person, and he definitely had a trump card that he could use to fend off an attack from Blake. All right. They nodded before rushing towards the corpse. With 2 people fighting against the corpse, it wouldn't take long before they would take it down. So, you're the one who crippled my siblings? Jason looked at Gray curiously. Void was already out of sight, hiding inside Gray's storage ring. Chapter 620. If you put it that way, yeah, Gray replied straightforwardly. You also threatened to cripple all of us, Jason added, all on the premise that he persists in his needless chase. Gray responded, his expression was the same, calm and collected. Jason looked at him, a little taken aback by his cool-headedness even when facing him. Klaus and the others approached the trio, all staring vigilantly at Jason. Alice in particular had an extremely furious expression, recalling how the 5th prince almost married her sister. It's been a while. How have you been? Jason paid no heed to the stares he got from the youngsters, as he turned to Delia with a warm smile. I've been alright, Delia replied while moving to Blake's side. We're not enemies, it's only a misunderstanding that will be settled shortly. If you 4 had come with the people sent over to the capital in the first place, none of this would have happened. Jason turned to the youngsters who were staring at him disapprovingly. Given how those people came for us, I don't think the Emperor is quite welcoming towards us. From what I've heard recently, he's even trying to extract our cores, Klaus said coldly. All false, we only want to know whose side you're on. We have no interest in what you obtained, it's your fortuitous encounter anyway. If it was meant for someone else, then you 4 wouldn't have obtained it, Jason said gently. His voice was soothing to hear, and the group almost dropped their guard against him. He has a way with words, Gray thought internally, as he decided to shut out whatever Jason was saying. I apologize for the way my father handled things. It must have startled you 4. Jason continued speaking after a moment of silence. Enough, Jason, stop sugarcoating the Emperor's selfish desire, Blake injected before Jason could continue speaking. He knew this friend of his. Jason was a cunning person who could easily deceive people that something was blue, when everyone could clearly see that it was white. Jason's way with words has been something he had since young. This made him the Emperor's favorite son and also stamped his place as the crown prince. It's common knowledge that even the second prince, who was also fighting for the throne, knew he stood little chance of winning against this blessed brother of his. Jason stopped speaking and smiled in response to Blake's words. He soon turned his attention to the battle that was ongoing. What is that thing? He finally asked. A corpse. Everyone replied simultaneously. Jason gazed at them, almost wanting to scream, of course. I know it's a corpse. What I mean is, how is it operating? He rephrased his question. We're just as clueless as you are, Blake replied with a shake of his head. His expression showed great curiosity. Jason didn't doubt him, since this was the first time he was seeing or even hearing of a corpse being able to fight. Fascinating, he muttered as he looked at the corpse that was being suppressed by the two men who came with him. Blake and the others exchanged glances. There was no way two were going to tell Jason about necromancers. It didn't take long before the corpse was completely suppressed by the duo fighting against it. One of the men was a fire elementalist, while the other was a lightning elementalist. Individually, they could take down the corpse. Together, it didn't even last 3 minutes before it was unable to move. Both men returned with knitted brows. Jason couldn't help but ask, "What's the matter?" That thing looks exactly like a famous expert who died 300 years ago, the fire elementalist replied. It doesn't just look like him, it can also use his signature moves. I managed to trade blows with this person once, and I'm certain that thing is him. The strength might be a little lacking compared to when he was alive, but at least 90% sure that he's the same as this thing, the lightning elementalist said. When Jason heard of this, he gasped in surprise. If this was a powerful expert who died 300 years ago, how was he revived? They were still in the middle of trying to figure out how it was possible when an explosion caught their attention. Boom! The principal's figure retreated quickly as 3 corpses chased after him. He was currently in a sorry state, and his previous appearance had been destroyed by the continuous attacks of the corpses. Jason and the 2 men were stunned when they saw 3 more corpses. The 2 Sage Plane experts were particularly speechless as their bodies trembled. Gray and the others noticed their reaction, and they were able to deduce that they might have some kind of relationship with one of the corpses. Mars Master, the fire elementalist called out with a croaked voice. I'll kill you. The lightning elementalist's reaction was different from that of the fire elementalist. Contrary to the pained expression on the face of the fire elementalist, he was completely overwhelmed with anger. Lightning even started to dance around his body. Gray and the others retreated from the area, not wanting to get entangled in the brawl of an enraged Sage Plane expert. The fire elementalist charged towards one of the corpses, while the lightning elementalist went after another. The lightning elementalist drew a brilliant arc in the sky as he flew straight at the corpse. Crackle! Bang! A large lightning bolt struck the corpse from the sky, sending it straight to the ground. Buzz! Boom! The lightning elementalist attacked with a ball of lightning which exploded as it made contact with the corpse. Small lightning snakes exploded out of the lightning ball as they wrapped around the body of the corpse. The corpse was still in the middle of chasing after the principal, so it never saw the lightning elementalist's attack coming until it was too late. One has to know that even for a Sage Plane elementalist, if ambushed by someone of the same plane, the chances of being killed were extremely high, especially since the corpse had no consciousness, so it couldn't react accordingly to the situation. This is the end of this video. Thank you guys for listening. Hope you enjoyed and wish you wonderful rest of the day. The Silent Ruptors out.